The following podcast contains adult language and an abundance of salt. So watch your cholesterol levels. Things are about to get salty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast, the place where we discuss movies, television, pop culture, and a healthy dose of salt. I'm your host, Alex, the Salty Nerd, and with me, as always, is my salty crew, Juju. How are you doing?
I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this.
I'm also being joined by the Dork Knight himself, Danny. Welcome back to the show, man. What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me.
And Matt Vader, the Dark Lord himself. Are you ready to do this?
No, but I'm not ready at all.
I feel you.
If you guys haven't already figured out, we're going to be discussing the sequel trilogy, the Disney trilogy. We're going to be talking about the sequel trilogy, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. But first, before we get too deep into the weeds, Jude, you recently had to watch all three of these movies for the first time. Is that correct?
That is an appropriate way to say it. I had to.
Had to for this podcast.
I was forced.
You suffered for us. Thank you for that. Before we bring Kadish back over here, why don't you give us the rundown on what your feelings are about these three movies, being which that it was the first time you watched them?
Okay, so I told Kadish when you guys decided to have an episode about this, and he had to rewatch them. I said, I love you, so I'll sit next to you on the couch while you watch them. And that was a huge mistake. And he's making me talk about them. And he's sitting across the room with his arms folded across his chest right now, like a jail warden, making sure that I sit here and talk about these shitball movies that I hate.
All right, so let's start with The Force Awakens.
Spoiler, I hate them.
What did you think about The Force Awakens?
Okay, so let it be said that I have successfully avoided watching the majority of these movies because I knew how I was going to feel afterwards. And that's how I feel now. And I'm just full of regret.
How did you know? Did you know because of just Kadish telling you, or did you know about the social media backlash?
No, I think I just used the Force in whatever fucking way I wanted to, because that's the rule now. You can just use the Force however you want. I guess I'm just getting right into it.
Yeah, you are.
So I'll start with The Force Awakens. My come away from that was that until the very last scene of the movie, I had completely forgotten that I had already seen this movie. And I was like, Force Awakens, completely forgettable.
Did you think it was forgettable because of the similarities to A New Hope?
I just think it was completely uninteresting.
Okay.
I didn't have any real glaring problems with it. I just didn't feel like it was good.
Okay.
Not in your wheelhouse.
No, but like the Ridge-Tridge, as Alex likes to describe them. No, those ones hold a special place in my heart that I will rewatch them over and over again. Do I love Star Wars? Do I go bananas for Star Wars? Is it like, that's my shit? No, I'm not that girl. But those are quality, timeless films. This was just something that somebody thought was going to make them some money. So they thought that they would pillage the movies of my childhood in order to do that. And it's upsetting.
So when you say forgettable, just for clarification, in my sense,
I completely forgot that I had seen this. Did not register a memory with me. No, I wasn't
You're a big fan
drunk.
of A New Hope, right? So you're like, I've seen A New Hope, and A New Hope is a better version of this. And so this one's totally forgettable. Is that kind of the context?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a completely forgettable movie.
Okay. I just wanted to hear you
Case in
say
point,
it again.
I forgot that I actually did see this movie.
Did you have any at all connection with any of the new characters that they had introduced to this movie? No. Okay.
No.
Is that all you have to say about The Force Awakens?
Yes.
Okay. You want to move on to the infamous Last Jedi?
Yeah, because I want to get through this.
Okay, go ahead. What did you think about that movie?
Okay, so The Last Jedi, I had more problems with. I had a real problem with Luke. I felt like they were trying to make us not like Luke in order to make us like Rey and accept her as like the new Luke. And I just felt like that was a cheap shot. It wasn't necessary. I could have accepted Rey if they had done a good job with her without hating Luke.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like they did a really shitty job with his character. I had a lot of problems with the rules of Star Wars changing. That didn't make any kind of sense. There wasn't any context for it. It was just all of a sudden Leia is traveling through space and her eyeballs didn't explode. I almost said the F word. I held back for you, Alex.
It's okay.
Her eyeballs didn't explode. She didn't freeze. She didn't even die. And I almost said I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Everybody's seen
yeah,
this
no.
movie.
So, but Luke dies because he used the Force too much.
Yeah.
He used the Force too strong, and that killed him. But Leia traveled through space.
Patriarchy.
She's cool. I wrote in my notes, Luke had a meditation death.
Meditation death.
Or to
Yeah.
bring it full circle, he lost the will to live.
Oh, yeah. He just gave
He
up.
lost the Force to live. And I had a big problem with the fact that Rey is just like so much more powerful, or at least equal to everyone who has like all of this training and bloodline behind them, and she's just some garbage person. And all of a sudden she's just like the elite of the elite, and we all need to bow down to her because she's our strongest fighter with nothing behind that. So I had a lot of problems with it. I felt like it was really weak storytelling, and it was lazy and sloppy and stupid.
Don't forget about Broom Boy.
Broom Boy. What did you think about the Kylo and Snoke relationship? How he offed his master? Did you find any kind of interesting point about that, or was that just kind of meh by that point? Because that's at the end of the movie.
I was just at that point. I just kind of knew that was probably going to happen, and then it did, and I went, okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else about The Last Jedi that you wanted to get off your chest?
No.
No. Okay. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Let's
Just get
Keep
this
in mind,
over
people,
with.
the reason why we're doing this because this
Bury
is the
the body.
first time that Jude had ever watched them. So I wanted to get her thoughts fresh off. Like, you just finished these yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So these are thoughts that are just fresh off the press for you, which
Yeah.
is a lot of. These are the thoughts that a lot of us people, other nerds, have had for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's interesting to hear you just coming straight off of them. So
Yeah.
The Rise of Skywalker. How did you feel? So JJ had to come back and kind of polish up the rest of the story that he wanted to tell. Did you find that? Did it put any light towards The Force Awakens for you, or was it just kind of like a garbage disposal?
I had the most problems with this movie.
More than Last Jedi?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Tell me why.
I felt like it was a slow progression from me feeling apathetic about a movie to having some problems with a movie to feeling like a movie raped me.
Oh, God.
Strong.
I feel attacked by the Rise of Skywalker, which, by the way, she's not a Skywalker. She figured out who her parents were, who she loved, and who loved her. And there was this whole story it could have actually been a believable story. And then she was just like, Skywalker's my name. Oh, fuck you. Just fuck you. You're going to have to bleep me out a lot.
I know.
I actually have I don't know if you want me to save this for later.
Shut up, Danny. I'm still talking. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I'm kidding.
I totally can. Because upon rewatch, because I felt the exact same way, and I just rewatched it,
Yeah.
and I feel like, so she's like, and I'm all the Jedi, remember? And then she kills Palpatine.
Yeah.
And like that whole, with all the voices, everything. So I think for her, she picked the name of one of the Jedi that
Surrogate parents.
Yeah. So like it bothered me less for some reason upon second viewing, for some reason, because of the, because I had that thought in my mind when I saw her do the part where she's like, and I am all the Jedi. So not trying to defend it. But I just had that realization.
We're gonna have a ton of fun this episode.
I'm going to leave before you guys start defending this.
Do you have any closing thoughts? Any other thing about The Last Jedi, or not the Rise of Skywalker?
Here are my notes on The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay, go ahead.
Nothing makes sense. Nothing is believable.
True.
Nothing matters.
True.
It doesn't matter if you die. Your love story doesn't need to be believable. You don't need to have chemistry with a person because we're just going to decide that you're in love. And the only good part of this movie was the backstory scene, and it's one fucking scene of Luke training Leia. That was the best part of this movie. That was the only good part. The only part that I enjoyed about this movie, and it was over so fast. And it was like it was supposed to like smooth over a world of transgressions.
That's, I mean, we'll talk about this more in detail, but that's kind of how I feel like the Rise of Skywalker is. Just it's something that's trying to band-aid the transgressions that came before.
There was one part that I liked better in that movie,
Okay.
but I think
Was it the
should
end
I save
credits?
it for later? No, I'll say it now. What?
Was it the end credits?
No,
When it was finally over?
It's when Rose Tico went and looked at blueprints.
What?
Rose, can you come with us? No, the general wants me to look at blueprints. Oh, okay.
And that was the last you see of her.
There was no follow through with the spy either. He was like, I'm the spy.
Boom.
Boom. Dead.
I have a lot of thoughts about
So
this movie.
I hate this movie so much. And I'm full of regret. And I'm very angry that I actually watched it.
Okay, my next question for you, and this is a very important question.
Okay.
Did it ruin the original trilogy for you?
No.
Okay.
No, it didn't. It just made me surlier about how movies are done today. They're just so lazy. You just take a genre that people love and you think you can just fart a bunch of shit on a screen and we're all just going to line up at the movie theater and puke our money at you.
Well, we did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
we all
you
did.
did.
Because it
but it
says
was some
Star Wars, so
beautiful-
everybody's
Yeah.
going to go watch
There's
it.
brand loyalty.
It was beautiful looking shit, though. Like, as much as I dislike these movies, no, this shit looked
was.
gorgeous.
Well, yeah, you're spending $300 million on a movie.
It looked so
It
good.
better look good.
Yeah, like when we talk about well, yeah, no. I mean,
Yeah,
like
but
the
that's
only shit I like about
thing
these
that people
movies.
care about is making it look good, but not making it believable or making it be something that people
See,
want to invest their hearts in.
No, and I agree with you. To answer his
Sorry, I
question,
know I look
to
really
you,
angry
Oh, no, it's
as
fine.
I'm speaking to you right now. It's just my face.
I think it makes the original trilogy better if by nothing other than default comparison.
Yeah, it definitely
You know what I
stands
mean?
apart.
So, but they did make a lot of bad stuff look
Yeah.
beautiful. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of cool concepts.
This is the definition of how you polish a turd.
Yeah.
They made the prequels look way better, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least they had a story, kind of, you know?
Sort
Ish,
of.
You know?
Yeah.
More than these did? I mean,
All
I
right.
don't know.
Now that you're going to start defending it, I'm going to go.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk more in detail about it. But thank you, Jude, very
Thank
much
you for having me.
giving us your experience
I'm
on
sorry
watching
I
this
gave you a
trilogy.
lot of work in editing.
That's fine. That's all right.
Okay, love you guys. Bye.
Yep. Bye. All right, Matthew Kadish is going to take
Estrogen
her
out.
Estrogen out.
Kadish is going to come in and take her spot, and then we're going to do a deep. Well, yeah, we're going to do a deep dive, or as I like to call it, the SMP Double D on Star Wars:
one
The
calls it
Sequel
that.
Trilogy.
It's just, you guys got 90 minutes
90 minutes,
and I'm done.
hour and a half. I could do it.
That's
in
it.
an hour and a half.
30 an
That's all we
episode.
got. I can't do 3 hours on these movies.
You'll do
I
3
just
hours
can't.
and like it.
No, I will not.
See, Matt, you have to do it for posterity. That way, instead of talking about them in the future, you can just point people to this podcast.
Exactly.
That's what- exactly.
Next year, when we do May, we'll just repost all of these episodes.
And you're good.
I'll be honest with you
We'll
guys.
take a month off.
I'm a little burned out on Star Wars.
It hurts to do this much Star Wars.
Yeah, I've done a lot of Star Wars this month.
This is what Christian Harloff was talking about when he's like, I worked my ass off for 5 years being a fan. Remember that little rant he
Yeah.
had? Because he didn't get into he didn't
I
get a
would have been
ticket
upset
to
too.
Galaxy Theaters.
No,
Or Galaxy, what was it
Galaxy's
called?
Edge.
Galaxy's Edge. Yeah.
You know, not Star Wars Land.
Yeah, not the Star Wars land that doesn't... Actually, it did look like Star Wars land, but it was just the location.
Where?
I don't know.
What part of Star Wars did it look
full-size
like?
X-Wings or the full-size Millennium
Where,
Falcon?
though? Where
That
was
part of
it
Star
at?
Wars?
Some planet we'd never been on before.
But two.
Okay.
I believe they refer to this as the Mandela effect.
It's like they could have put the Millennium Falcon and set it out on the strip and go, hey, look, we're at Canto Bite.
There you go.
That would have been a better.
Not a bad idea.
That's a great
better idea.
Make it so.
Put the Falcon on the top of one of the
Caesar's Palace.
Caesar's Palace or something. That'd be dope. I'd go to that.
You know what was weird about Canto Bite that I noticed in my rewatch?
This is ugly.
Well, it's
All the people there were ugly.
it's actually
They had every producer and producer's child and person that worked on the show and some makeup.
John
at some
Williams
point.
was bartender, I believe.
And Rise of Skywalker.
well, you know what's funny is so like they say go to the casino on Canto Bite. I'm like,
Okay.
is there just one casino? And then like when you actually look at that opening shot where the yacht kind of goes off the waterfall and flies off into the distance, the entire planet's barren. There's only that one little mountain with the waterfall and that one little town with the casino in it. That's the only thing on that planet.
Kind of like Vegas.
Kind of like,
Yeah.
sounds like Vegas.
All right, let's get into
It's
it.
their Lake Mead.
Let's start off with The Force Awakens. 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Disney had purchased the rights to Star Wars from George Lucas, and they had promised to make a brand new trilogy for us fans. And JJ got brought on to direct, and we had Lawrence Kasdan back as writing the script. And I, for one, as a super fan, was stoked. I could not wait. JJ was promising all these practical effects. We're going back to the classic Star Wars. We're going to pay homage to the original trilogy. Because at the time, and I know people don't like to say this, and people like to rewrite history, but at the time, most people didn't like the prequels. And there was a lot of hate towards those things. And everybody was looking forward to the time where we could put those behind us and get something a little bit more like the original trilogy. And that's what JJ was promising, and that's what we were looking forward to the most. And I remember when this thing came out, it was a huge, mega event. When this came out, I took literally my wife's entire family, grandparents, her parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, our kids. I brought my 1-year-old
This was back
kid with
when
us.
people thought J.J. Abrams was actually a good filmmaker.
I like
still.
his movies, Kadish. Stop poo-pooing what I like.
What movies of his did you like?
I can't think of a movie that he's done that I haven't liked except for maybe these Star Wars movies.
Really, you liked all the first two Star
I
Treks?
did like the Star Trek movies, yes.
Yeah, you liked Super 8?
I kind of did like that
Like
movie.
Mission Impossible 3?
I love Mission Impossible 3. That was a great Mission Impossible. Philip Seymour Hoffman, that movie was awesome. Anyway, besides the point. I went multiple. I think I went 8 times to the theater, not with the whole family, but I went with the whole family once. We had a big event. I still have a picture on my bookshelf of our whole family at the theaters with the Star Wars poster behind us. Like it was a mega event, and I walked into that movie and I left and I was just on cloud 9. I was like, that was freaking awesome. You know,
Really?
And I did. I really did.
I'm in the same boat. Total
loved
same
it.
boat.
I fell in love with it. I was like, that was a fun movie. That was awesome. It felt like, that was an adventure Star Wars movie. All right. And of course, once the criticism came out and I kind of thought about it a little bit more critically, I was like, okay, it's kind of a rehash, right? It feels a lot like A New Hope. And I'm like, I was still in defense of the movie. I was like, I get it. Like he was a little nervous going into this. He didn't want to mess things up too much. He didn't want to be too risky. So he was like, I'll play it safe and I'll just do a rehash of A New Hope, but with new characters and a couple new plot lines. I was like, I get it. I'll let it slide. What was your first theatrical thoughts on The Force Awakens, Kadish?
So when the opening crawl happened, I was a little bit confused. The whole kind of setting of what's been happening since the end of Return of the Jedi didn't make a lot of sense to me, where I was like, okay, the First Order is basically the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
There's a resistance that's part of the New Republic that's fighting against the First Order for some reason.
They're resisting something, right?
Yeah. So upon reading that, I was a little bit confused, but once the movie started, I was like, I'm just going to turn off my brain and enjoy this. And so I walked out of the theater for the first time, having seen The Force Awakens, having enjoyed myself. It was fun popcorn, movie theater. That's why you go to the movie theaters to, see that stuff. And I had been super hyped going into the film, having seen all the trailers and
Oh yeah.
bought into the excitement and stuff like that. And at the time I was still very much a fan of J.J. Abrams, and I believe that Disney had their stuff together and was, going to do right by Star Wars. And so I was naive. I had a lot of hope. And I will say that upon each and every subsequent viewing of this movie, more and more problems hop out at me. And I'm at the stage now where I watch this movie and I'm just like, I can't believe ever thought this was an enjoyable film because it's really poorly done. It's a really poorly done movie.
I still kind of like it.
I mean, if you completely shut off your brain, yeah, it's enjoyable. But if you are watching it as part of the larger saga and you're looking at, just the lazy storytelling techniques and the whole resetting it to basically what we had at the beginning of episode 4, it's insulting almost, like how badly conceived this story was. And when you consider what happens after this, the next 2 movies,
it's even worse.
I remember being upset when I left the theater the first
For The
time
Force
I watched it.
Awakens?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what happened?
I was pissed off that I got 3 seconds of Luke Skywalker.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1. That was a troll. Absolute troll job on everybody. It was. There's no other word for it. They did Luke dirty in this series, man. They really did.
Oh, yeah. And the whole series, absolutely. The Force Awakens, I felt like it was one of those cliffhangers.
I was excited, just like we all were. But something felt off, just almost from the get-go with this movie. I don't know how to describe it, what it was. Maybe it was too video gamey, with the way the Falcon was flying around.
Yeah.
I didn't think the dialogue was quite there. I was really upset how they treated Han.
Really?
I knew that was probably coming at the time, but they turned him into a deadbeat deserter dad, and that wasn't the Han Solo I had in my head canon. The bigger Death Star, that sucks the sun energy is like, and then for somehow the beam splits
into 5
kills 4 or 5 different planets and stuff.
Travels light.
It was
years.
just it's like I'm just going to take all this stuff that was in this one movie and just kind of make it bigger.
Yeah,
that's what JJ did.
Yeah,
he just kind of barfed all over Star Wars and made this stupid movie.
That's
it was
valid.
Just, yeah,
I can't argue with that.
So, have you guys ever gotten the distinction between a reboot and a remake?
Probably, but go ahead. Tell us your thoughts. Also, while you're talking, give us your theatrical experience.
Okay. But so JJ did the Star Trek movies, and when Kadish and I first met, it was at a Star Trek convention, and one of the first things we talked about were like, at least the first one. I don't know if the second one was out at that time because
I think it just come out.
Yeah, and we both agreed it's not Star Trek. Like they're good movies, but it's not Star Trek. So like, as you guys are talking about it, I'm thinking about my rewatching experience, except for the second one. I didn't rewatch the second one. If people who've never seen the original trilogy before watch this movie, I mean, to me, they got the right guy. They got J.J. Abrams, who does good reboots. This is A New Hope rebooted, is what it is essentially. And that's kind of the attitude that I had going into it. So perfect segue into, am I going to see this at the theater? So I went with a bunch of friends from a charity I used to be a part of called Critical Care Comics. And it was like, so me and the founder of that charity used to be like tight. And we went to, we were super stoked, man. Like you guys were saying, like he was like, we were each other's buddies, just hyping each other up for the release of this movie. You know what I mean? Oh my, did you see this? Oh no, man. Yeah. But did you see this? Like just all about it. And so we went and we took, it was like his wife, a few, like, there was a group of us. We had like a whole row. And I don't want to incriminate anybody, but I'm going to say I was on edibles. So it was like a goddamn religious experience for me. It really was. I was able to enjoyed that movie so much. You have no fucking idea. Sorry. I really did. I had an amazing experience seeing. I even bought the damn shirt. I meant to wear it today, but I came here straight from.
You literally
from
got the
meeting.
T-shirt.
I literally did. Like I've been there, done that. I literally got the damn shirt.
When I was at the theaters, they were offering these like collectible admit one movie tickets that were like encased in like this hard plastic. I bought one. I had like Kylo Ren and gold lettering and all this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm full.
Yeah, we were in the same damn boat. Man. Yeah. So yeah, I was all about it. So I left there. I was like, yeah, Cloud 9, man. I was like, fucking A, they didn't fuck it up. This is so good. And I had this really spirited discussion with a good friend of mine, Brian Brunty. He's he's got some cred as a nerd in Las Vegas. And he was just like started bringing out he just dropped reality on me. It's like, well, if your dumbass wasn't on edibles, you'd have noticed X, Y, and Z. Instead, you just scarfed a bunch of popcorn and enjoyed all the visual effects for essentially the same damn movie, you've already seen, you got to watch at home. So, I rewatch it and, that's, but it'll never ruin the experience. I had a great time. I will say that. The experience of seeing the movie was way better than the next one.
I had a great experience at Phantom Menace. Still a terrible movie.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can't argue with that, especially if it's something that you're like really, really excited for. I feel like your expectations kind of make you a little bit biased as to when you're watching the movie.
Until they're subverted.
Until they're subverted. Oh my God. We'll talk about, don't spoil it yet. We still got a good 45 minutes on The Force Awakens. No, I'm kidding. I just gave Matt a heart attack. Okay. So what I wanted to do, since we all kind of already talked about the fact that this was basically just A New Hope rebooted, I think we can skip the idea about the plot. The plot's the same thing. We got these secret plans or secret map inside of a droid. We have to get the droid to the Resistance. The Resistance is then going to fight the Empire Light. So I think we can skip that. But I want to discuss the characters a little bit. And starting, of course, with Rey, who is our main protagonist in this movie. We don't get introduced to her quite yet. I think it's along the same lines, again, because of the New Hope. It's along the same lines as when we get introduced to Luke. Luke is just living his life. He's just doing his normal thing. He's farming moistures, buying droids, yada, yada. He's living with his aunt and uncle. We get introduced to Rey. And I have to say, even today, even watching it recently, like a couple days ago, in preparation for this podcast, I freaking love Rey's introduction. When she's like in front of this massive destroyed Star Destroyer, the music, her theme that John Williams came up with, a dun da da da.
Yeah, it's great.
I freaking love it, man. Yeah. It's beautiful. And I see, you see Rey climbing up and down all these scaffoldings and scavenging parts and whatnot.
Up until that point, the movie's really good. Well, we got introduced to Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
He was a badass Sith Force user, Darksider. I'd never seen a Sith guy stop a laser bolt.
That was pretty dope.
Yeah.
That was dope.
That was.
I'm like, okay, we got something good going on here.
I'll show you the dark side.
And then I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, you're good. No, no, it's a good idea I realize now
so
that I should have
issues with Kylo Ren. So many.
But at that point, did we? I just go,
exactly.
Oh.
He's just saying it, but by that point,
Yeah.
So just like
I should have started these character analysis from the moment we get introduced to them. So we get introduced to Poe. Let's reset. We'll talk about Poe. He's like this Resistance spy, like starfighter type dude, rogue agent, whatever. He's going. He's trying to find a
he
loot.
used to be a spice smuggler.
Yeah, that's his new.
But we don't find that out until like 3 movies later.
Don't worry about it.
Apparently, he has a backstory.
So basically the whole idea about this movie and what kind of sets it forth is they're looking for Luke Skywalker, right? Luke is missing. We don't know where Luke is. Like that's
in the
driving
crawl.
force. That's the opening crawl. Where is Luke? And then we get to see Poe. He's like, he found this clue, right? Oh, I found a map to Luke Skywalker.
Well, Luke left a map behind in case he ever needed to be found.
In the opening crawl, it says they found a clue on this planet to the location of Luke Skywalker. And then Lor Santeca, I can't remember. Is that his character name?
Yeah.
His character, Lauren Santeca, is played by, what's the actor's name?
Max von Sydow.
Max von Sydow. Rest in peace, buddy. What did he say about the map? Did he say he found it, or did he say that it was left with him? Because I can't remember.
Does it matter?
Kinda.
I think it was left with him. I think it was. And if I'm sure if I'm wrong, lots of angry nerds will let me
He
know,
has
but-
this key plot device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Luke left him a key to the place where he went to that he never wanted to be found from.
Right.
So, that makes a lot of sense right there, right?
Yeah.
The most unfindable place in the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, they left the map. God, these movies fall apart when you start thinking about them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you get introduced to Poe, and I thought Poe was really cool, and the whole scene where the ships come down and they're, the new stormtroopers come out.
Great.
I was like, oh, freaking, that's cool. Yeah, I dig it. I was invested. And we get Poe. He's got the full size, real, practical effect X-wing fighter. Like I was stoked about that. I actually really liked BB-8 too. I thought he was pretty cool.
I could watch the first 15 minutes of this movie over and over again.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. And
it's
it
really
moves,
good.
man. I gotta say, this movie is quick.
Yeah,
like it starts off with a bang and it does not stop for a minute. And that's part of the downfall too. Is I felt like the characters didn't have time to breathe. They never had a chance to like sit down and talk.
in the moment though, like, 'cause
Yeah.
it was, I don't know.
But anyways,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
But you think about the first 15 minutes. You get introduced to Poe. You go, he's a cool rogue Han Solo type character. You get introduced to Finn. He's the stormtrooper with the morals
gold, yeah.
and the issues. You got Rey, introduced to Rey. You got BB-8, the droid with the attitude and the heart. And it's a great start to all these new characters.
Yep.
So,
and like you said, Kylo using that force to stop that the
Yeah.
laser bolt, like that was a shocking moment.
even Phasma was cool in the first 10 minutes of this show.
She was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
He just kind of shit all over her.
Oh, man.
Everybody got done dirty.
It's like, got to sell those action figures, man.
That's totally, I can agree with that. Okay, so and then eventually, like, we all kind of agree that Kylo was pretty badass in that first. You said you didn't like him at first either, even in that opening scene?
Oh no, I liked him at first.
Okay.
As the movie went on, though, I just had so many questions. Like, so we established that Kylo has the power to basically freeze stuff,
Yeah.
like lasers and people.
Yeah.
Like, there's that scene where he like freezes Rey so
Yep.
she can't move. Where was that in the next two movies?
They forgot about
That
it.
might have come in handy occasionally. Like if he wanted to capture Rey, just like, freeze her and like pick her up and put her on a ship. They just kind of forget about that force power.
No, but he was in love with her and he didn't want to like Anakin Padme her. You know what I mean? He was trying to respect that level of the, I don't know, man. I'm sorry.
Just trying to come up with
There's also the whole mind raping thing.
that was an intense part of this movie that I thought was really cool. Like these are good inclusions. Like I like new force powers, and I know a lot of people have issues with them kind of introducing new force powers if they're not fleshed out and if they're not justified. But
Well, the whole thing is they introduce force powers as a plot device as opposed to actually having it be like a sensible part of the lore. Like when we start talking about the third movie, the force powers they introduce in that movie are just game-breaking insane.
oh, it's a video game.
I mean, no, it literally like breaks so much of the lore where you're like, how come like the old Republic Jedis weren't doing this stuff all the time?
Don't worry about
it.
The what?
The old Republic Jedis.
The what?
Anyway.
The ones in the prequels.
Not canon.
All right, how do you guys want to break this movie up? Kadish, what are you? You're better at this nonsense than I am. How do you want to break this up? Do you want to talk about characters? I kind of feel like we should talk about that.
I want to talk about certain things that just stood out to me as being bad.
Okay. Go ahead. You know what? Let's do that because I might still be able to defend this movie. So go ahead.
Don't you dare.
I'm going to. I'm not going to.
I won't be able to help myself. I'm sorry.
Me and Danny will defend it. You guys will shit on it. Go ahead.
Idiots.
Go ahead, Kadish.
Well, the first thing is, so Kylo goes to Jakku in order to find this map that will lead him to Luke Skywalker. And he finds the guy who had the map. And the first thing he does is kill him. Now, wouldn't you think that he might like freeze him and then use his mind raping force powers right there to kind of figure out what he did with the map? Or you have to know that later on in the movie, Rey's seen the map, so he's hoping to get a view of that. But didn't that guy see the map? The one at the beginning, Max von Sydow?
Maybe he just had the flash drive in his pocket.
Yeah, he just had the flash drive.
So like he never looked at what was actually on it.
The flash drive.
No, well, he doesn't have a droid that has a like BB-8 or R2D2 around him. So it stands to reason that he just had this thing. He just never looked
Where'd he
at
get
it
it from?
Yeah,
Luke left it with him.
Luke left
Gave
it
it
with
to
him.
him.
Oh,
He had to have left it behind and or
Come on, man.
Because so the map itself is just a missing piece.
But at the very least, so like the guy knows who he gave the map to. So couldn't Kylo have figured out, okay, who has the map and where'd he go, and then kill him? Like why does Kylo need to bring them up to the Star Destroyer in order to interrogate them?
I don't know.
No, he's making and you just blew my fucking mind, dude. I never thought it, like, think about it. He's right. I mean,
Well, of course he's right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
of course he's right.
Because it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah.
Well, did he know? He didn't know that Poe was there at that point. It happened like after this. So he kills Max van Sydow, and then Poe shoots at him.
Why kill this guy? Because they obviously have a history together.
Yeah.
Like they made it clear that
He knew who he was.
Because he was maybe they were trying to build like character, like when he throws his temper tantrums and stuff like that. He's not very smart. You know what I mean? He's more reactionary. You know?
but having a character be stupid is not a good like plot device. It's
fair enough.
But you get the sense that this Max von Sydow character had some type of connection to the New Jedi School. He knew Ben Solo before he became Kylo Ren. He knew Luke Skywalker. Yeah. So there was history there.
It seemed to be some kind of insinuation of a previous relationship.
Yes.
So maybe we didn't get this in a backstory. Maybe it's in a comic. Maybe he had a reason to want to kill him. You know what I mean?
But
I think he was just flexing.
Like when it came to Vader, Vader was always so cold and calculated. Like everything he did was smart, and it always had a purpose to it.
Well, and he's trying to be Vader, so it makes sense. He's like he wouldn't be as good as Vader. Like he'd stumble along the way.
I chalk this up to lazy writing.
Fair enough.
Young and inexperienced.
That's another thing that I wanted to talk about.
Go ahead.
So like we have the scene where Kylo Ren is communing with Darth Vader's mask, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I feel the pull of the light, help keep me focused. You know, I want to finish what you started. Where's Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost?
It's not. It's Palpatine.
No, I said, where's Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost? Why didn't Anakin Skywalker show up at some point to Kylo and be like, hey, kid, don't make the same mistakes I did. Stay with the light. Because we've got Force Ghosts showing up everywhere throughout these new movies to help guide the Jedi. What was Anakin doing in the afterlife that he couldn't spend some time to save his own grandson's soul?
You go to the dark side, the Force Ghost thing goes out the window.
Yeah, I think it's just a thing of the light.
At the end of Return of the Jedi, Anakin Skywalker was a Force Ghost.
Yeah.
In his Jedi robes.
No.
But they were being seen by Luke, who's a Jedi. Yeah.
I'm saying once a person goes to the dark side, like Kylo Ren turned to the dark side, Ben Solo turned to the dark side, became Kylo Ren, you no longer have the ability to commune with
you lose that access.
But,
which is the same thing.
Before he turned to the dark side, he was training to be a Jedi. And he hadn't turned to the dark side.
No, he had
yet.
Luke there to talk to.
Yeah.
He had Luke there, but he obviously wasn't listening to Luke.
Okay.
So, like, where was Anakin?
Well, now you're rewriting the whole movie.
The ghosts only show up.
I'm asking a very simple question. When Kylo Ren was studying to be a Jedi, and he was gaining his power in the Force, and he was feeling the call of the dark side, where was Anakin Skywalker? Where he could have shown up to his
because then we
grandson.
would not have a movie.
No. But was he feeling?
Why would you want to do that if you're gonna make a movie about something and you're like, well, technically, if you did something before the movie starts, then we wouldn't have a movie. So let's do that.
But you have to address it.
No. Well, I still have an argument for this.
Go ahead, Danny.
This is what's called good writing. Okay.
Fair enough.
I think you're stretching, man. Go ahead, Danny. Go ahead.
No, as a writer, let me tell you something. I will let Danny speak in a second. As a writer,
what podcast is this? Let Danny talk. He's got a thought.
I haven't finished my thought.
Go ahead. All right, fine. You win. Go ahead.
As a writer, these are things
Point your finger somewhere else first.
These are things that you need to think through before you set pen to paper, because otherwise your entire story falls apart.
Okay, well, by that rationale, like, why didn't Qui-Gon's Force Ghost come to Anakin and be like, hey, Anakin, why don't you not turn to the dark side?
I can settle this
because then the prequels wouldn't happen.
No, this is why. Okay, because in that example there was a Padawan and a master. All right, and so with Luke and Ben, you got a Padawan and a master. Okay, with Luke and Yoda or Luke and Obi-Wan, there's no master. So they need the first of all, you only have access to these Force Ghosts if you're on the light side of the Force, and then you only really need access to them if you're masterless. And you call upon them, just like Rey does in the last movie.
Where is that
she's
established?
calling upon?
It's.
I don't know. How do I know this?
Now.
It's the Force, man. I just it's a feeling I have. I don't know. Maybe
that's the issue here. Is like there is no clear rules as to how this.
Well, how much exposition do you need to explain all these rules to people? Like,
you need a basic line of dialogue. You need someone to say, like, hey, this is how Force Ghosts work.
He's just described to you. We had 3 movies about how Force Ghosts work.
He's not in the movies.
No, but like by looking at how it's worked.
I've always felt that
this is going to be a fun podcast.
This is why I hate talking about this shit. I've always been under the impression that lightsiders can talk to Force Ghosts if the people that are the Force Ghosts knew how to do it when they passed.
Yeah, well, Anakin, they have established that Anakin knew how to.
Darksiders don't have that ability.
Which, to be completely honest with you, makes absolutely no goddamn sense.
Also, they established that the Jedi didn't know how to do this in the prequels. Like,
right.
It wasn't until Qui-Gon made contact with Yoda.
Exactly. But how does Darth Vader know how to do it? He was never taught it, and he died as Darth Vader.
Right.
Well, he died as Anakin.
He died as Anakin, but he was Darth Vader for the majority of his life. And then he just was like, you're good now?
And you also have this issue where, like, Kylo Ren becomes one with the Force when he dies, And it's like, how did he learn how to do that?
We never saw a Force Ghost Kylo Ren though.
Yeah, we
No,
didn't. And
no, we
that
didn't.
to me, that was a huge missed thing. Like that was one.
You
of
would
my-
have wanted to see that?
I did. I wanted to.
But-
I mean, at that point, I didn't
But
care.
when the body disappears and it becomes one with the Force, it's assumed that they ascend to that Force Ghost status.
Exactly.
yeah.
But you know that's something that you have to be super powerful in the Force to
Well,
achieve.
it's never seen that Vader's body disappeared.
Well, that's because he's inside. He's encased in
He
his.
got cremated.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got
Well, so did Qui-Gon Jinn, but Qui-Gon Jinn did not disappear and become one with the Force
Until
like
after he
corporally. Anyway, did he? Did they retcon this in the series?
so
I haven't
This is
watched.
not established in any of the movies. This is like Clone Wars and like comic book and novel stuff.
Okay.
Qui-Gon learned how to do it post-death, basically. He became one with the Force, and then once he was one with the Force, he was able to kind of like bring his human form back to become a Force Ghost.
Well, if you want me to believe that, they should put his ass in this last movie because that would have been nice.
he talked for like
He
3
did. No,
minutes.
so did Ahsoka. So she's dead.
Yeah, Ahsoka's dead in Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, The Force Awakens.
Yes, sorry.
So my argument against you, sir, is simply that like if you set up all this stuff, then you would just simply not have a movie going forward.
Well, if you don't have a movie going forward with this stuff set up, you need to come up with a new movie. Because this is, I mean, as a writer, this is your fundamental building block of what your story is going to be. If you can't answer these questions, or if the answer to these questions like invalidates your movie, then you need to change your movie to, you know, make sure that it fits within what's come before it.
It quite simply could have just been that he had Luke as a master, and the failure of Luke is what caused him to turn. And by the time he turned, it was too late.
They also established in that movie. This is the thought I lost earlier when I was going to thank you. Was he wasn't Luke was seeing the future or some shit. He was having visions. Ben wasn't doing anything wrong when, totally out of character, Luke Skywalker is going to kill his nephew in his sleep. So like in Ben's, they had no inclination of that. It was like some unrealistic action.
Basically
they
what
had Luke
happened
Skywalker
was-
take in The Last Jedi, which makes no fucking sense. So sorry.
Is the person who wrote this movie doesn't know the first thing about Star Wars.
Or writing.
Or right.
I think to his point is writing.
You guys can try to headcanon your way out of this all you want. But the fact of the matter is that the honest answer to this question is that the people who wrote this movie didn't actually think about it too hard.
I'm on your side, man.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that because there's no, like, if this was supposed to be a trilogy with a beginning, a middle, and an end, they clearly, none of these, like,
Well,
these three movies
it
are so
wasn't-
disjointed.
yeah, there you go. Thank
Well,
you.
okay, so my argument then would be, are we all in agreement that the EU is the extended universe was pretty badass back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Way better.
So the same freaking thing happened.
Well,
Leia and Han's kids turned to the dark side. Then the same thing can be said. Like, where was all their family members and Force
Yeah, but
Ghosts
you
telling them not to do
it's
that?
a big part of
in the
Luke
Thrawn
being.
trilogy. Yeah, in the Thrawn trilogy, they established that Obi-Wan Kenobi was
Talks to Luke.
Well, he talks
often.
to Luke, but no, he at the very first Thrawn book, Obi-Wan came to him in vision, said,
I
I'm
can't
leaving.
stay like this
yeah,
forever.
I can't stay
right?
like you. I'm leaving. This will be the last time you see me. And so
Oh,
they
I do
basically
remember that, yeah.
they basically solved that Force Ghost issue by just saying like, okay, this was a temporary thing that Obi-Wan was able to do with Luke, and now he's on his own. But the movies haven't done that. In fact, they've doubled down on it.
Yeah. They've let him be able to
And-
interact with the physical space around them
and-
too.
I have an argument against that.
And you know, if they had just had someone say that, you know, Force Ghosts can only appear to people that they had a personal relationship with at some point,
Which I think is implied.
it's never stated. So like you can't justify it. But like if they just had like a line of dialogue in these movies to just kind of set the ground rules for some of this Force stuff, these wouldn't be issues, but they are.
It could have been a throwaway. He just happens to be reading the page in the book that talks about ghosts.
That's a big plot convenience, those friggin' books. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what people use to defend the other two movies.
Yeah.
Another issue
goddamn
that,
books.
another issue that I want to bring up is how Kylo Ren uses the Force to basically like punish people that displease him.
He hurts them with the Force.
Yeah, but
Well, Vader did that.
Yeah.
But here's my point. So if you look at how Vader used the Force to punish people, he was very meticulous in how he did. Well,
Try not to choke on your aspirations.
he wouldn't use the Force against people who displeased him. He would use the Force against people who either failed, like grossly incompetently,
Or annoyed him.
or basically were so stupid that they didn't deserve to live.
He choked his coworker out in a conference meeting because he said something annoying.
No, this is true.
It's the same thing.
Well, he was insulting his power.
Yeah.
And he just kind of gave him like a little bit of a choke.
Yeah, he was just going, this true.
Yeah.
It's like, you talk shit about my force. And this is what the force can do.
This is what the force can do. So like he was proving a point.
Hold on. The exact line is the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to me choking you to death.
Next to the power of the force.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
Here's a little taste.
We've never seen the force do anything on the scale of destroying a planet. I'm just going to put that out there right now.
Well, we saw it take down an entire fleet. In the Rise of Skywalker,
with a giant fart noise.
but so like Vader, like he killed the admiral.
We're getting into the weeds. Go ahead.
When he came out of hyperspace too early and alerted, so like, he never punished people that didn't deserve it, is what I'm saying. If you look at how Kylo Ren does this, he literally throws a tantrum and like there was a scene in Rise of Skywalker where one of the guys is like, why should we be trusting the Emperor? Like, what's he want from us? And then Kylo throws him against the ceiling with the Force for asking a perfectly reasonable question.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But he does this throughout like the entire trilogy.
He's no Vader. I think it just kind of proves my point where he's no Vader.
He's trying so
hard.
He's trying so hard.
But here's the thing: if you want to set up a credible villain for your story, why make him look like a petulant child?
That's what he looks like.
Jeremy Johns did a fantastic video on this very subject. He's like, why the First Order is not nearly as scary as the Empire. Like the Empire was cold, calculated, like you said.
They were smart.
They were intelligent. And then when you look at the First Order, they just throw tantrums and scream and yell. You got Hux screaming and yelling. So you got all the whole.
My takeaway from the crawl, maybe I'm totally wrong, and I don't know, but so you've got the New Republic, which is basically like from the original trilogy, the rebellion overthrew the Empire and became the New Republic. And then you've got the First Order, which is the remnants of the Empire who make this First Order, which is First Order Light.
They're not the remnants of the Empire.
They're not?
Are they?
What are they?
They are.
They were something completely new, weren't they?
No, they were remnants of the Empire.
Remnants
Like some of them talk about their previous post and shit like that.
We'll find out in The Mandalorian season 7.
Right.
No, it's established. It is the remnants of the Empire that were still loyalists.
Where was that established, though?
It's in
I think it's
first movie.
Yeah.
It's in Force Awakens.
It's in the book, man.
It's in the book.
Nowhere in The Force Awakens do they say that.
It's in the opening crawl, I'm pretty sure. Remnants of the Empire, now called the First Order.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Look it up real quick. Look up the opening crawl to Force Awakens. Anyway, all right. So we talked about Kylo and how.
I'm going to look up the opening crawl to Return of the Jedi, you donkey.
Okay, so Kylo Ren, you're displeased with the just the basic setup of his character.
I don't feel like they made him a credible enough villain.
Okay.
I also don't like how, new powerful force powers are introduced throughout this trilogy, and like it's just like Deus Ex Force.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Well, not the whole thing, but just the.
This time of uncertainty, unrest grips the galaxy as the influence of the First Order spreads. Luke and the Jedi he was training have vanished. Glimmer of hope remains in heroic forces of the Resistance. General Leia Organa has dispatched an agent to recover a relic that may lead them to her missing brother.
So it's nothing in there.
The evil Kylo Ren, obsessed with the Skywalker lineage, has secretly.
At this point, we didn't even know who he was. So they were trying not to give it away. Wow, there's nothing in there about that. It's just supposed to be like.
No, I remember.
Assumed?
Maybe
See, like from what I could tell,
because they have stormtroopers, they got TIE fighters. You would just assume that they're just remnants of the Empire.
I swear, like I remember somebody having this conversation though.
The only thing that gives you that connection is that General Pride in the Rise of Skywalker tells Palpatine that he will serve him now as he did, then.
Oh well, there you go.
But that was towards the end of the third movie. So plus the whole thing about Leia running the Resistance. It makes
okay. So the
I understand. This
is
a plot point that
the
really
Resistance inside the Force Awakens has no reason to exist other than to be rebellion light. Of course, they explain it after the movie comes out in a book or somewhere, something like that, where they said that the Republic was kind of in denial that the Empire had kind of had a resurgence. They didn't think it was true, but Leia was like one of the only people who were like, no, guys, this is a credible thing. We need to address it.
Oh, and is that why they don't have as much help?
Exactly. So she was like, just give me a few ships, give me a few people, and I'll go and take care of it myself, is basically the setup. But again, this is not in any of the movies. This is like novels and comic books and stuff.
But the whole thing about they fight this civil war to achieve independence as a new republic.
Mm-hmm.
And then they fight to get rid of the last remnants of the Empire. And that had to take at least 10 years, maybe, give or take. So
Battle of Jakku?
So you have the situation where you have a new galactic government that is willfully ignoring a growing threat. And you know it's a threat because the First Order was around long enough to build Starkiller Base. They were around long enough to steal children to raise as an army. So like they had to have been operating in a fashion that people knew they existed.
Go ahead. Our Googler.
So, I just went to YouTube watching it. Luke Skywalker has vanished. In his absence, the sinister First Order has risen from the ashes of the Empire.
There it is.
Okay.
And will not rest until Skywalker, the Last Jedi, has been destroyed.
There it is. Okay. So it is established in the opening crawl.
Okay.
Cool. Matter settled.
With the support of the Republic, General Leia leads a brave resistance.
Yeah. Okay.
Against what?
Empire Light.
But the whole point I'm making is like this whole setup for, the new era of Star Wars makes no sense. Like it could have been way better established.
Everything could be better. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree that it could be better.
Just from
I'm just
a
saying,
structural writing standpoint, it could have been way better established.
I think we nitpick these modern movies so much because there's such an established.
These aren't nitpicks. These go to the core fundamental structure of the entire trilogy.
Couldn't you say the same thing about A New Hope?
No. You yourself, sir, said that when you left the theater for the first time, you had an enjoyable experience.
Because I didn't think about it too much.
Is that not all that matters?
No. I want to continue to have this enjoyable experience.
I'm giving you the that Hollywood producer point of view. You know what I mean?
It's like if you look at Episode 4, it's very simple. There's an evil empire. There's a resistance.
Where's the
there's
evil
a civil
empire
war.
come from?
Remnants of the Empire.
It does. See, that's the thing. There it is.
But there was nothing that came before.
That's just bad writing.
No, that's not bad writing. There was nothing that came before New Hope to contradict it. Okay.
So
it was establishing the world that we were entering into.
But we just established it. They said in the opening crawl that the remnants of the Empire.
We had 6 movies to establish this stuff, and they reset the future of this franchise to what we had
one, so that they could do a New Hope reboot.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why they hired J.J. Abrams. Point is that this is the core reason why the sequel trilogy fails, is because the whole world building aspect of it was borked to begin with.
Okay. We're in a rut.
He's absolutely true.
We're in a rut, and I can't completely disagree with you. You do have a point. You do have a valid point. If I was better at arguing, I would continue on. But if
your argument actually had water to it.
Oh, there's plenty. I mean, come on.
That was dirty. That was dirty.
If your argument was actually correct, you'd have a better time.
J.J. Abrams, if you look at the movie, J.J. Abrams' job was to basically reintroduce
a new generation to Star Wars.
Here's what J.J. Abrams' job was. I can't talk. I'm slurring like I'm J.J. Abrams' job was to put out a movie to sell a lot of tickets, because Disney just bought Star Wars and they had to put something on the movie screen.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
And you know what's the most telling about JJ's take on this? Is he said in an interview that originally in the script, Luke Skywalker had a much bigger part in their initial drafts. Yeah. And they found that every time that they went through a read-through of their scripts, he took away attention from the new characters. And that's because everyone loves Luke Skywalker. He's one of the greatest characters in all of cinema. And so they kept scaling back his part so that they could put more focus on the new characters. And that was the core issue where I point to as this is why JJ's a bad writer, is because he should have known that, if Luke Skywalker is taking away the steam of the new characters, number one, the new characters aren't very well established. And number two, you have to start with Luke Skywalker and have him pass the torch to the new characters to make them the audience care.
What they should have done.
There's no training. They should have the movie.
What they should have done was made Force Awakens the original character's story.
Yes.
Reintroduce them, give them their moments, give them their scenes together. And second movie should have passed the torch. Maybe one of them die, Han Solo or something. Third movie, all about the new guys. And then we can get a second Disney trilogy that's all about the Leia or Rey and Poe and Finn.
The fact that they were afraid to put Luke Skywalker on scene because he would have taken all the attention off That's the biggest mistake they could have made. Is just give him half of the first movie and pass the torch. Either at the end of the first movie, pass the torch, or middle of the second one, pass the torch. Like there's a couple of points where you could have done it. Just like Obi-Wan Kenobi was in the majority of A New Hope. He didn't die off until almost maybe halfway through, more than halfway through the first movie. Obi-Wan basically passes on the torch to Luke, and Luke
Two-thirds
goes.
into the movie.
Yeah. The same thing should have happened.
All the legacy characters got done bad. Like 3PO and R2.
Oh, in this first movie, that's awful.
You know, like I would have liked to have seen 3PO and R2 kind of carry on their role as like the lowest characters. Like,
that's who the story was told by.
Through their eyes. But R2 was completely absent through most of this trilogy. 3PO kind of came back in the Rise of Skywalker, and every time he was on screen in Rise of Skywalker, I was loving it because it felt like Star Wars again with
3PO.
Like, yeah,
You might not
he
recognize me because of my red arm.
Yeah, they never explained why he got his red arm.
It's in a comic book.
Well, it's in the comic book.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, for real, I have it at home.
No, yeah.
No,
I read it.
I believe you. What I'm saying is like
terrible.
it should have been in the movie.
Classic Disney.
Another big thing is how like they start these story threads that they say are going to pay off later, and they never do. Like Maz Kanata saying like, "Where'd you get Luke's lightsaber from?"
Oh, we
It's
didn't
like,
even get to Maz Kanata yet, man.
That's a story for another time.
literally only
and
gone over
that time
Kylo
never
Ren.
comes.
Real quick, let's talk about. Okay, so we talked about Rey a little bit. We talked about how she got introduced. We'll kind of
Biggest
mention her.
Mary Sue in cinema history.
I disagree.
I don't.
Give me your
That's what
arguments.
They
How
should have
can you
had Luke
disagree?
Skywalker training her. There should have
In
been
the
that
first episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it should have been Luke that she
Yeah.
hooked up with instead of
Tell me
Han.
Mary Sue moments.
Exactly.
I'll see if I can defend him. Go ahead. We're just trying to make this
Please.
interesting.
Please
We're
don't.
just trying to make this interesting,
Please
man.
don't.
It'll be a big circle jerk if we're all just shitting on it all time.
How does she know how to fly the Falcon? if
Okay, so
never
she's
flown a
lived on
ship
this
before?
planet her entire life. She describes her relationship with Ankar Plot, where he has these broken down ships, and she's a pilot. She's self-proclaimed, I am a pilot. I've flown before. She knows.
No, she said she's never flown before.
Yeah.
No, never off planet. She's flown, just never off planet. That's the line.
She literally said, "I've never flown before."
No, she does not, sir. She says to Finn, I've flown before, just never off planet. That's the line. Stop trying to undermine me and say that I don't know what the f- I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure.
Go watch the movie again then. And she
I
says,
just
I've
watched
flown
it.
before, just not off planet. That's what she says. Anyway, so she describes the fact that she knows that the Falcon has not flown in years, which implies that she has seen it fly once or twice before. It's also implied that she knows what upgrades that has been given, which also says she's probably the one who either was there installing them, or she
stole the
knew,
parts,
or
you know?
stole the parts,
Yeah.
or she was
Sold them.
involved in the creation of this new Falcon.
Man, you got way out of that
Okay.
than I did.
All right.
It's all in the movie.
All right,
It's
I'll-
lines,
I'll-
lines of dialogue.
Okay,
no,
I'll concede this point to you.
Wow.
No,
Holy shit.
no.
What time is it? It is 4:56 on May 21st.
I'll
in the year
concede
of our
this
Lord
one to you.
2020.
Just because you're so passionate about it. But
I'm drunk. I'm drunk. I'm sorry.
But tell me this, okay?
Yeah.
How does she know how to do the Jedi mind trick?
Okay, so she fails 3 times, right?
Well, first of all, she didn't believe the Force was real.
Exactly. Yes.
Second of all, no one ever told her about the Jedi mind trick. She didn't know about it.
Right.
Third of all, she'd never used the Force before.
Right.
So how does she know how to do it?
Okay, so before this happens, she gets mind raped by Kylo Ren in the interrogation process, which kind of gives her and she fought back against it. because
Two-way tunnel.
It's a
thing.
two-way tunnel.
Yeah.
So she learned, I don't want to say learned, but she kind of got the idea that this was
absorbed it.
possible from Kylo Ren. The official, okay, I don't agree with this official narrative that they actually explain this, but what Disney has said is that she basically downloaded her abilities from Kylo once they had that mind meld. And later on in JJ's
It would
trilogy,
have been nice if they established that in the movie.
exactly. But later on in JJ's trilogy, it's established that they are a Force dyad, so they're very, very heavily connected. Her and
Nice
Kylo.
little retcon.
Yes, very much so a retcon. However, it's a trilogy, so it has to be taken into account. So these two characters are very much connected. So when they first come in contact with each other and they have that Force connection where he's probing her mind, she starts getting all these abilities, these flashes, this idea.
So they're like
of how she
twin
can-
flames. That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
that's
romantic.
exactly what they-
That's
there was-
so
they have a
sweet.
virgin-
Exactly what it is. Yes. So
virgins
the
in the
Force
Force.
awakens inside of her, and
Yeah.
she
Okay.
becomes a part of this Force dyad, which
Yeah,
is
well.
the reason why she's so freaking overpowered.
And the name of the movie.
The Force Awakens, exactly.
There you go.
So that's the explanation for that. It's a weak explanation. I'll give you that. However, it is kind of explained, kind of in a way.
How does she know how to fix the Falcon better than Han Solo?
Okay, so Han Solo hadn't seen the Falcon in years, right? Unkar Platt has had his way with it. He's done all these.
It hasn't changed in years, though.
Yes, it has, because
No, it hasn't.
it had
the new compressor, it had the new ignition
which
thing,
she knew about.
which she knew about because she was
like he said earlier. She probably sold the parts.
So the
to
reason why she knew how to fix that specific issue with the hyperdrive was because she was most likely the one who installed it. Han Solo didn't know what it was. Like, oh, they
Where
put this
was it ever
ignition coil
established that she was a mechanic on anything? She was a junker.
Well,
She went out to the things, lived in her little gutted out.
Again, these are all just little bits of dialogue.
And survived on breadcrumbs that she got from bringing the junk into Unkar Platt.
Also,
That's not the only thing she did.
In the movie, Han Solo specifically talks about how the compressor puts too much strain on the hyperdrive. So he knew what the issue was. But she didn't. She knew how to fix it better than he did.
All she did was disconnect it, and she knew where it was. Like, oh, the compressor that we installed is right here. Let's just disconnect it.
He identified the problem. She knew what it was, and she took care of it.
Yeah, that's all it was. So this idea that like she can fix the Falcon better, that doesn't make any sense.
She can fly the Falcon better. She can fix the Falcon better.
I didn't know about this download
she can
explanation.
use the Force better.
She can fly the Falcon better. I'll say that the movie, because JJ is JJ, and that's the type of movie that he does, is very, very action oriented movies. The whole flight with the Falcon through the destroyed Death Star, that's very, very video game like cutscene. It's over the top. We've never seen the Falcon do anything like that before.
See, the thing to me,
the closest thing that we've seen is Han Solo going through an asteroid field.
Well, are we including Solo, a Star Wars story?
I suppose so.
Well, I mean, there's a pretty dope ass Falcon scene in that movie.
So the argument that she can fly the Falcon better than Han Solo, I don't think that holds water.
the thing that's clear to me is that J.J. Abrams needed these characters to do stuff, and he didn't have the time or the inclination to properly set it up. So he just had them do it, and then he tries to explain it away by, it's the Force.
The Force changes.
There's also there's also this. Thank you, Jude. I'm going to give credit to Jude over here because she's doing research in the back. But Jude just brought it up to me. It's established when Rey goes back to her homestead, the destroyed AT-AT. She has the helmet from the Y-wing pilot. Yep. It can be established, or it can be kind of like. It can be said that she has experience, and I think officially she downloaded some computer program from an old Y-wing that helped her fly.
And
all I know is somebody
in the movie.
Again, yes.
Where was it in the movie?
Okay,
it's not.
So if you're going to take something apart, you kind of need to know how to put it back together. I think, like, for me, I feel like we're spending way too much time on this because for me, I feel like it's not unreasonable to assume that she knows how to install this shit if she knows how to take it apart.
It's also not unreasonable to assume that if we listen to what Luke says, I flew through Beggar's Canyon. He flies his little model. It's never said in the movie what model, flight simulator he's using, but he's using that little Y-wing type thing through Beggar's Canyon.
He actually flew what was it? T whatever.
TY something, whatever it is. Yeah, it's never said in the movie, but it's established.
No, it's said.
Because he's playing with the model.
It's
clearly
said.
That's in a deleted scene.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, he says at the end of it, and when they're getting ready to assault the Death Star, he's like, I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-13 at home.
Yeah, it's the same thing as Rey saying like, oh, I'm a pilot, I can fly this thing. How is that any different? Luke is saying, hey, I used to fly Beggar's Canyon back home. I can take on the Death Star. As Rey saying, I am a pilot. I know how to fly this thing.
Rey never says that though.
They're running through the sand.
I don't remember her saying that.
She says,
either.
I'm a pilot.
I'll bet you $20.
We need a pilot. We have one. Me. How is that any different?
Well, I'll give you that. But
Okay. Moving on.
Yeah,
what else are we going to talk about? Han Solo.
I hated what they did with Han Solo.
Okay, let's talk about that.
We're an hour in and we're
It is
quarter of the way through the
it
first
has
fucking
been an
movie.
hour in. I got to take a leak, guys.
Go ahead. Take a break. You guys want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's
take a break. I love you, Kadish. I love you.
Let the hate flow through you.
You guys realize how funny we are. If you go back and take notes, we were going to talk about characters. We literally
we just went way off the rails. Okay.
There are two things I want to talk about.
Okay, perfect. Because I actually want to talk about Han Solo. Because I might, depending on your argument, I might be able to argue against it. So go ahead.
Well, the first is I hate that basically we have this full character arc of Han Solo in the original trilogy, and it's completely reverted in this movie. He reverts back to the scoundrel he was. He becomes a deadbeat dad. He becomes a divorcee, and he's back to his old ways. And I feel that just cheapens the journey that he had in the original trilogy. And I feel like, just like they messed up Luke, they messed up Han. Okay. And the only character that they actually had progress and stay progressed was Leia. Okay. And I feel like they just did Han dirty in this movie.
Okay. So to your point, I will disagree. Seeing Han and Leia get together in Empire Strikes Back is a wonderful moment, and it will never be able to be cheapened to me. Han Solo's character, his personality character of that scoundrel, of that loner, of the guy who wants to go off and do his own thing. It's all right. I think still exists. I think that tie that he has with Leia is still there in The Force Awakens. They describe it. However, they go through a tragedy where they lose their son. And to any couple that goes through something that terrible, there's a troubled time. And I think Han Solo, like he said in the movie, he went back to what he knew best, because they had this trauma. They had this moment where they lost their son, and they were always kind of like this headbutting couple. That's established in Empire Strikes Back, and it's even established in the Return of the Jedi, where they're even fighting on Endor. I mean, they love each other and they're together, but they're kind of butting heads a little bit on.
There's a difference between fighting and banter, though.
And again, like I said, I just think that they tend to butt heads a lot, and then when something this tragic happens, where you feel like essentially your son dies and he becomes this evil galactic empire wannabe guy, they're gonna have this moment where they have to decide whether or not they can handle it, and apparently they couldn't, and Han went back to the way he was, and I think the tragedy of losing his son justifies at least that much.
Normally I would agree with your assessment on this if it weren't for the fact that I know that J.J. Abrams just wanted the old Han Solo back, and so he just shoehorned him into the movie and then retroactively tried to explain why he was there.
I don't think it wasn't retroactive. They explained it in the first movie.
Yeah, so
JJ had an idea. He's like, yeah, I want the old Han Solo back. Okay, so what can happen? What could possibly happen that we would see Han Solo be a scoundrel again?
But if you look at where we left off with Han last time we saw him, he was a hero of the rebellion. He was a general. He had achieved some respectability. He got the girl. He had changed. He had evolved from that scoundrel that he was in Episode 4. And it would have been nice to have seen more character progression as opposed to character regression, all for the sake of nostalgia, which was entirely JJ's intent.
Well, not even that, but apparently he was like a crook too, like a scumbag, like ripping people. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like
that sounds like old Han Solo.
I don't know about you, man, but I don't want to revert back to the asshole I was in my 20s, being in my 40s now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, that's fair.
Just from the more I listen to him talk about it, the more like I'm being seduced by the dark side here. I don't know.
I'm looking at it just at the point of like as this couple, Han and Leia, dealing with the tragedy, and they just have to part ways.
So, not to get too personal, but
because they can't handle it.
I've been married and divorced twice. I've had one of those was kind of a Han Leia love story. Sometimes shit just doesn't work out, and like I didn't have nothing as bad as like my kid becoming like Darth Vader light ever happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not like they don't love each other. I mean, they see each other again at the end of the movie, and they're like, "Hey, we miss each other. It's too bad."
I still kind of love my ex-wives. You know what I mean? We got kids.
I have a hard time relating to this Han Solo because, I have a child who has fallen to the dark side in a way, and I've never felt that way. In fact, if anything, it's made my wife and I closer.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the other way you can go. There's two different types of people.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that you're that type of person, but it also exists the other side.
I would chalk this up to just bad writing as opposed to anything else.
We've got to make tell me you have a shirt that says just bad writing.
I'd chalk this up to bad writing.
Yeah. It was just JJ being lazy. It's JJ being lazy because he wanted the old Han Solo for nostalgia's sake in his movie. And he's friends with Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford was like, I don't want to be in more Star Wars movies. Yeah. Let me just play this part, get my paycheck, and leave. And JJ was like, okay. And he didn't think about the fans. He didn't think about the legacy. He didn't think about the character. That's my biggest problem with this.
Okay. I can't say that's not a valid way of thinking about it. For me personally, I see it as it's described in the movie, is that this couple went through a tragedy and they split up.
I think you have Stockholm syndrome. It's one of those things where you want this movie to make sense and be good, and so you make excuses for all the bad stuff that they did.
Okay, well, if that's how you want to see it.
Well, not every. Okay, no, well, people make all kinds of different decisions. What you or I might think is right or wrong, somebody else might, might
There
think.
is a such thing as objectively wrong in screenwriting, though.
No, for sure. But I'm just saying that, like, just because it's not what we wish would have happened with the character doesn't mean it doesn't necessarily, to a certain point of view, make sense. I'm not saying it makes. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I'm actually agreeing with you, man. I'm just saying that I see both sides.
Would I have been happier if it ended up the way he wanted it to end up, where everybody's kumbaya and happy together and the relationship still exists? Sure.
I didn't say that.
What did you want? What you?
I wanted it to be respectful to the character. I wanted to see a character progression based off of where we last saw the character.
Right, not the regression that he became.
Exactly.
Like the example I gave of me being
like
a 20-year-old
you could still have like tragic elements, you could still have regressive elements, but to completely reset the character after 30 years of not seeing him.
And even Leia hadn't changed. Leia was the same character that she was when we left the original movie.
I'm sorry, did you mean
Leia.
Leia?
Leia.
Thank you.
Leia.
Not Leah. My
Whatever.
mother-in-law's name is
Leia.
Leah.
I'm sorry.
Please don't confuse me.
It's just the whiskey.
It is the whiskey, isn't it?
Moving
Jesus,
on.
maybe I
moving
should
on
try
from this
some of that
issue,
whiskey.
I have one more issue with this movie that I
Okay,
want to touch
go
on.
ahead.
Okay, so after Han dies, Rey and Chewbacca return to the Resistance base, and Leia walks past Chewbacca and embraces Rey, a girl she has never seen before in her life,
Yes.
because she was sad that Han Solo died.
Yes.
Give me a break.
And it's like,
Yeah.
if you ever wanted any evidence that J.J. Abrams didn't know anything about Star Wars or respect the original characters, it's that scene.
Okay.
Because basically to have Leia not go to Chewie after finding out that Han Solo had died and comfort him.
Right,
And choosing to
exactly.
go to this character that she had never met before.
Yeah.
Nor did she know what her relationship with Han Solo was, and hug her and hold her and tell her everything's going to be okay. That is one of the biggest sins of this new trilogy, is that they completely disrespected the relationship that Leia and Chewie had. But more than that, like the relationship that Han and Luke had is never given any closure.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah. But
yeah.
that one scene was the most insulting scene in the entire
100%
trilogy.
agree with you there. I can't. Yeah,
I
100%.
cannot argue with you at all. The only thing that I can say, and it's not even necessarily in defense or anything, it's just that when this was brought up to JJ, he full up admitted, yeah, that was a mistake. I should have done it differently. So at least he took ownership of that mistake.
I do remember him saying that.
Okay, well, if that
That's the only thing I can say about that, because you are 100% correct.
If you actually cared about your craft and took some time to think about your story, you wouldn't have made that mistake in the first place.
I'm honestly, like I was telling him while you guys were taking
and
your
that's
break,
part of the biggest problem with this series, is that it was not well thought through. It was not well written.
JJ was scared.
I don't care.
What difference does that make?
He's a professional fucking storyteller.
I'm just saying.
He's a professional story. He's been directing stuff since, for decades.
I agree with you. I'm just saying he was scared to do Star Wars.
Then he shouldn't have done it.
Right.
Exactly.
He shouldn't have done it.
Exactly. He was afraid, and that's why he made all these mistakes, because he was trying to play it safe. He was trying to play it easy.
Well, then how do you explain the Star Trek movies and the third Disney trilogy movie? Like, was he scared during all those movies?
I don't know about Star Trek.
Because he made tons of mistakes.
Star Trek. He wasn't a fan of Star Trek.
He wasn't a fan of Star Trek.
It doesn't matter.
And while those movies aren't Star Trek,
Irving
I like
Kershner
those
wasn't
movies.
a fan of Star Wars. He made the best Star Wars movie there was.
Who?
Irving Kershner,
Oh,
the director of Empire Strikes Back. The guy who did Wrath of Khan. He wasn't a fan of Star Trek. He made the best Star Trek movie.
He did. No, exactly.
You don't have to be a fan in order to make a good movie.
No, I'm not saying you did.
Tony Gilroy wasn't a Star Wars fan. He made Rogue One.
Yeah, but what's his name? That Logan guy that made that Abomination Nemesis. He wasn't a Star Trek fan, and they hired him.
No, I agree with you. You don't have to be a fan of something to make a good movie.
I don't buy the fact that JJ was scared, so he made mistakes.
Nemesis was a good movie?
I like Star Trek Nemesis.
Dude, we're doing Star Trek.
What?
You guys don't like Nemesis?
I thought you were talking about Gladiator, because the writer of Gladiator was hired to write Nemesis, which is an abortion of a terrible Star Trek movie.
You don't like that movie?
No one likes that movie, Alex.
My head just fucking exploded. Jesus Christ.
Back to Star Wars. That's a whole other topic.
How much whiskey have you had?
Yeah, we're going to come back to that one. We're coming back to that
This
one.
is just in. Nemesis is a good movie, everybody. Fuck you.
I'm leaving that one in. Okay. We're going to have to talk about that later.
Yeah.
I was under the impression people like that movie.
No.
I like it. I thought it was cool.
I'm pretty sure Tom Hardy admitted that he wanted to kill himself over that movie.
Really?
I'm not kidding. Google that. I'm pretty sure that was a thing.
Oh, man.
Dude, people are going to be mad. You're talking about Star Trek, the Star Wars podcast.
This is going to be our best podcast ever. All right, let's move on to the infamous Last Jedi before we get too far into the
Dun,
weeds.
dun, dun.
Okay, so this movie,
Matt Vader's favorite movie.
this movie has
Better get that edit button ready.
got
buddy.
to be. I might not edit this. I might not.
Just put an explicit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to just put a
Explicit
warning. Mom, don't listen to this. Don't listen to this podcast. The Last Jedi, arguably one of the most divisive movies
I just
ever created. Rian Johnson was
A movie that killed a franchise.
a movie that just derailed an entire trilogy,
No, the franchise is the whole reason Solo bombed. You know, it's
Yeah.
the reason they the Obi-Wan movie became a series, and
Yep.
you know all the I mean,
Yeah, it's a
Here,
reason they stopped making Star
let me
Wars.
see your
movies.
notes right there. Let me see your notes right there.
This one?
Yeah, let me see your paper. It's like, hey, Matt, I have an outline here. This is an outline. You don't have to stick to it perfectly, but it has an outline for all the established characters and story arcs for the next two movies. I'm going to give it to you now. See what you can do with it.
I'm gonna light it up and smoke it.
Yeah,
pretty much.
flip it up and throw it up your back and down a hole. And
Thanks for that, buddy.
Yeah, it's like thanks, but we're not gonna need that.
In case anybody
roll
wants
some doobies with it. Maybe.
Just in case anybody wants to argue that point, it has been said by multiple people, actors, directors, writers, that is exactly what Rian Johnson did with JJ's outline for the three movies.
You know, from what I've read, and I've actually dug into this as much as I possibly could, because I've written articles about The Last Jedi.
Short of actually calling Rian Johnson and asking him.
Exactly.
So I've wanted to do that.
So while Johnson was developing The Last Jedi, there was no completed script for The Force Awakens. So he didn't know what was happening with that movie while he was trying to write the sequel to it. And so at a certain point, he just said, "F it, I'm going to do what I want. And then once we know what JJ's doing, we'll try to incorporate some of what he did into what I want to do." And so The Last Jedi being its own train wreck was directly attributable to the decision not to plan out the entire trilogy from the beginning. Because basically, Rian Johnson had to create a sequel to a movie that didn't exist yet. And he didn't know what was going to be in that movie. And so, you know, like they went through lots of different drafts, lots of different rewrites. And we got what we got, all because Kathleen Kennedy couldn't be bothered to take the time to properly plan out a trilogy.
That bitch, Kathleen Kennedy.
Views expressed by Matt Vader are his and his alone.
Star Wars franchise whacked him.
Killed her franchise, whacked it.
Can't convince me that it didn't happen.
Fucking Tiger King, man. Jesus.
It's infiltrated everything.
Bob Iger be smacking.
All right. So let's discuss our theatrical experiences of The Last Jedi. And I'll start because I got to
feel like
say,
you got kicked in the nuts.
I really did.
That's it. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Honestly did.
Yeah.
So I got invited to go opening night, midnight showing, Thursday, whatever day it was that it came out, with a friend of mine, a coworker. I think I talked about him before. Me and him are huge film nerds. We throw movie lines back and forth to each other. He's like, "Hey man, I got tickets to go see The Last Jedi opening night. Do you want to go with me?" I was like, "Abso-freaking-lutely." And I'm like, "I know I have to work the next morning. My work schedule starts at 3 a.m. I'm going to go to a midnight movie of a movie that's 2.5 hours long and then just go straight to work." That was like, hell yeah, let's do it. Because I was still riding high. I still enjoyed The Force Awakens, still ready to roll.
You were like, what, 22 then?
Hook, line, and sinker, ready to go. So I go to this movie. I sit down in the theater. I'm watching it. I'm like, the opening sequence, right? We got the Yo Mama joke within the first 5 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that's a little weird.
That's a little weird.
But all right. The visuals are cool. Poe's doing his thing. You know, we got BB-8 doing a little slapstick droid comedy, kind of prequel-ish comedy going on. I'm like, all right. Well, we're okay. Then we got Hux, who got his nuts snipped within the first 10 minutes. And I was like, ooh, man, I kind of liked Hux. That sucks. And then the moment.
Really?
Yeah, I did like Hux.
You liked Hux?
In the first one, yeah. With the dynamic that he had with Kylo, you know, them two trying to impress Snoke and constantly trying to throw each other under the bus. I like that. I did
so
enjoy
he got
it.
snipped.
He got snipped early on. And I was like, ooh, God, that sucks. All right. And the moment that kind of set the trend for the rest of this movie for me is the moment I think everybody just kind of cringes at, is the throwing the lightsaber over the shoulder. I was like, whoa. I was like, what? And at the theater, there was laughs in the crowd. The crowd laughed. Like, and I was like, no, that's not funny at all. That was not funny. I was pissed at that point.
I let out an audible, what the fuck?
Yeah.
In the middle of a crowded theater.
Yeah. That was me. Everybody else was laughing because it's a slapstick joke moment, because the music cuts and it just plays like a comedy. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's not supposed to happen. And then it goes farther and farther down. The further into the movie we get, I'm just like, and then once we got the Canto Bight, I was just, my buddy was telling me, he's like, I was looking over at you while you were watching this movie and you just looked like you were in horror. And I was like, yeah, sure was.
The Space Leia scene was the scene that cemented it for me.
For you? Okay.
Yeah, like the over the shoulder lightsaber throw, that was big warning sign.
Yeah.
The bombers that can't shoot vertically.
Well, hold on.
Horizontally.
By the time we got to Space Leia, I was already checked out, bro. I was like, what?
I was trying to like the movie up to that point, and that was a point where in a crowded theater I said, "What the?" Yeah.
Let me get to I'll just skip to the end to where I was walking out of the theater, and my buddy looked over at me. He's like, "Hey, what did you think?" And I was like, "I don't know. I can't say at this moment." He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not okay." And I drove home. I got home. My wife was still awake. She's like, "Hey, did you like the movie?" She was all excited because she knows how much of a Star Wars nerd I am. She's like, "Did you like the movie?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Oh, that sucks." And I'm like, something went wrong. I didn't exactly know how to talk about it.
That was how I felt too, because I drug my wife to the movie with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience. I'm done, so go ahead.
And it was pretty much the same as yours. I was pretty much checked out before we even got to see Luke because of the slow roll bomber run and all that kind of stuff. I was just, and the mama jokes and everything. But, just to make a story super short, the movie got over and we're leaving. I'm super quiet. And my wife looks at me. She goes, "What is wrong with you?" And I go, "That wasn't a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what I just saw. It was just
trash.
And and I'll admit I went back.
Yeah, I did too.
2 days later.
Yep.
Just to try and to process what I had seen. I went by myself.
Can I laugh at both of you?
And I went by myself.
I only went the one time.
Just one time?
And I'll never watch that movie. I'll never give that movie another second of my life. Not even for this podcast. In fact, I'm telling you right now, I was going to say this earlier, you talking about the movie, it was like the flashbacks it was giving me was like akin to like the way I forgot how Father O'Flanagan used to molest me in second grade. It's that fucking bad. Like, that's how terribly traumatic this experience was for me.
Dude, I'm like, did I miss something?
It's like that movie can't be that bad. It's a Star Wars movie.
No, like something was off with me. I went back. I watched it a second time.
It's like I'm thinking to myself now, wait a second. Even The Force Awakens had a couple cool moments in it. This whole movie was garbage from the start. It was unbelievably bad. And I just, who's Rose Tico? Okay. Why is Finn got water squirting out of tubes?
Oh my God.
Walking around at the beginning of his story, why is this casino slow motion space chase? Okay. Oh, Admiral Purple Hair. Okay. Space Leia Poppins. None of it made any sense. It was just ridiculous. And it's just, go ahead, man.
Who wants to go next with the theatrical experience?
I think we've covered the theatrical experience enough.
You guys, everybody basically
I just want to talk about this movie.
Okay,
okay. I mean, mine was slightly different because I had just had a surgery. So like December 6th, I had a surgery. This movie came out like 10 days later. And like I wanted to see the movie, and I went and saw the movie at like kind of like a health risk to myself. And I literally left there feeling like I got kicked in the balls. And it was it's so traumatic. I've been racking my brain. I don't even remember who I saw that movie with, to be honest with you. It could have been anybody at this table.
I remember
I would not
every
remember.
freaking minute.
No, I have just tried so hard to delete it from my mind because not once, we can talk about the movie, Matt, because not once do I believe in what they did with Luke Skywalker.
It's funny. I think out of everyone at this table, I've seen this movie more times than
How many times
you
have you
guys
seen it?
combined.
How many times?
Yeah, probably.
I think I've seen it up to 8 times now.
Okay, I've seen it 4.
1.
2.
I saw it twice at the theater, and I watched it. I've probably seen it 2 more times. Just,
Why?
I've seen it.
Just because I knew this day was coming. And
I remember enough from that.
yeah, it was just, it
I
was
saw
like,
it twice at the theaters. I did a full commentary. This freaking movie is the reason why I started this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I saw it a third time because we did a full commentary on it. Me and a bunch of buddies who all were kind of in agreement. We sat down, we watched the movie, and we recorded ourselves talking about it while we were watching it. And then I watched it recently for this podcast.
I mean, the only way I'll ever sit through this movie again is if this group here is sitting together in a room
Doing a
and
commentary?
we're recording a commentary for it.
But I think, the 8 times I've watched it, I studied it. I sat down.
Yeah, you're the
and
film guru.
Looked at the scenes. And to me, this is one of the most fascinating movies I think I've ever seen in the respect that it's so bad and poorly done. You could teach an entire class on what not to do when writing a story and making a movie based off of this movie alone.
Teach us a class about how not to make a movie, Kadish.
In less than 15 minutes.
I'm not going to be able to do it in less than 15.
We'll give you 30.
But I recently did a Twitter thread
It was
about
a great thread, too.
and it was about how Rian Johnson studied one of the most legendary filmmakers ever, Akira Kurosawa, because Akira Kurosawa was a big influence on the original Star Wars movie. George Lucas based A New Hope off of the story of The Hidden Fortress, which was one of Kurosawa's films. But Kurosawa was, this legendary filmmaker that George Lucas actually took a lot of his visual and stylistic, choices from. And it's no different than someone like Spielberg being an influence on a filmmaker nowadays or something like that. So we all have our influences, and Rian Johnson, he was a graduate of USC Film School, so he's someone who's used to like studying film and kind of breaking stuff down. And his movies up to this point, like Brick was kind of like a breakdown of postmodern noirish detective tales and set in high school, so it was kind of like a mismatch type thing. Looper was kind of like a science fiction deconstruction of time travel movies and stuff like that. So he's kind of a wonky film geek, Rian Johnson. And I dug into the Hidden Fortress and Kurosawa when we were talking about A New Hope, and I kind of went further down that rabbit hole just for fun because I find Kurosawa fascinating. And I found that, as I was watching some of Kurosawa's stuff, I was like, wait a minute. I recognize this. This was in The Last Jedi. And if you look at The Last Jedi from purely a technical point of view, in terms of like the visual style that Rian Johnson decided to go with, it's heavily influenced by Kurosawa films. The color choices, the costume design, the themes. Like Kurosawa was a very kind of cynical filmmaker, and he actually was quite nihilistic by the end of his career. Like he'd fallen on hard times in the 1970s, and he tried committing suicide and all this other like really dark stuff. Like his wife died during the filming of one of his movies, and he just felt like he was, kind of losing it. And like all of his friends were dying, and his career had kind of like dried up. And so like his final movie, his final epic, not his last movie, but the last big movie that he did was this film called Ran. And loosely translated, that means like chaos. And it's kind of like a retelling of the King Lear story from Shakespeare, in the sense that it's about this tragedy about a ruler whose kingdom gets torn apart by his sons in a civil war. And it's one of Kurosawa's only color pictures, and it's also considered to be his masterpiece. And if you study Ran and you look at how it was filmed, the colors, the stylistic elements of it, almost beat for beat, Johnson uses these techniques in The Last Jedi. And he even uses Kurosawa's techniques of incorporating weather elements into the background of his shots to add movement and emotion to otherwise undramatic scenes. Like, every scene that you see, like with like fire raining down in the background or wind kicking up, like, the final fight between Luke and Kylo, there's smoke like wafting around in the background. That's something right out of Kurosawa's playbook.
So is he influenced or is he just stealing technique?
I would say he's influenced. I mean, like he was as influenced by Kurosawa as
George
Lucas
Lucas
was when he was making A New Hope.
And that's one of the things where I kind of push against people who are like, oh, it's just a ripoff of this. Like, well, everything is a ripoff of something else. So I don't like that mentality of saying that a filmmaker is ripping off another filmmaker when literally everything that we love in geek culture is just influenced from something that's before our time.
But this is one of the big issues is that like J.J. Abrams does not put this much effort into conceptualizing his movies. And if you look, like I watched The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker back to back. And even though they all look pretty, The Last Jedi stands out in terms of the quality of its...
cinematography?
Well, I was going to say a very stupid filmmaking term that you guys aren't going to understand. It's mise en scène.
Ooh.
Mise en scène.
Which basically translates to what's on the screen.
Okay.
That it's a term that kind of incorporates everything that shows up in a movie.
I love that shit. I love it.
It like The Last Jedi, in terms of its mise en scène and its conceptualization, is very sophisticated. It's a very sophisticated directorial choice movie. Whereas when you compare it to JJ's movies, JJ doesn't even come close to reaching that level. So I have a weird newfound respect for The Last Jedi, even though I still think it's a terrible, terrible movie in terms of story structure and in terms of storytelling. What Rian Johnson did with his writing in this movie, because he took this very cynical take on Star Wars, and his creative choices for this film completely destroy a lot of what came before it. Mm-hmm. And that's inexcusable. It completely destroyed the character of Luke. It created retroactive plot holes in the entire franchise with the Holdo maneuver. The whole Leia Poppins thing where she's flying through space, that is a perfect example of the violation of Chekhov's gun, which is basically like, a rule of efficient storytelling. If he had just had one line where Leia said, back when I was training to be a Jedi before I left, Luke's Jedi Order or something like that, if they had just established that she had actually trained to use the Force before that scene happened, it would have been fine. But they didn't. So it came out of nowhere.
I still don't think it would have been fine, personally. But that's just me.
It would have been justified.
I will argue... In me personally, that scene didn't break things for me. Like, I was actually surprised at the reaction to that scene from a lot of people because, I mean, she's freaking Darth Vader's daughter. She's Anakin Skywalker generation. Luke Skywalker is one of the strongest Jedi in the world. His sister makes sense that in a life and death situation that she would be able to pull herself out of it. However, I will argue that simply, I'm only going to say this one thing. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes defending this stupid scene. I will argue that it's more the delivery of that scene than it is actually the physics and the lore behind it.
It just came out of nowhere.
The idea that Leia can use the Force should not surprise anybody.
No, that's not the idea that surprises me. It's just in the cold vacuum of space, your eyeballs should explode pretty much immediately. But,
this is a fantasy. This is not science fiction. This is not Star Trek. So I would argue that doesn't have any credence.
Fair enough. Here. But I also, while watching it, thought... dear God, why am I watching this? But what I was actually thinking in that moment was, why? I mean, no, seriously, why? Why not? She's dead in real life. Just this would have been the perfect spot to kill the character.
Yes. Okay, that's a good point.
Why? Why
because
not?
At that point,
that's a perfect spot.
We knew that that Carrie Fisher had passed away. Rest in peace, Carrie Fisher.
And it would have been way...
And honestly, if it was actually Kylo that would have pulled the trigger, I think that would have even been
and that would have been easy to change in post.
I know
that
how
would have been
a
strong moment.
Yeah,
I know how I
killed
would
his mom and his dad.
Go ahead, Matt. What's up?
I know how I would fix that scene.
How would you fix it?
I would fix that scene by not having her emanate any Force powers. I would fix that scene by having, it's a trap. What's his name?
Akbar.
I would have had Admiral Akbar push her through the door and close the door before getting sucked out into space.
That would have been good.
Sacrificing himself.
Oh, way better death.
That would have been a strong
Instead of just
scene.
being some random dude that got sucked out into space during the same scene.
Yeah.
Because then he would have had his moment, would have died. Oh, God, Admiral Akbar died. And he would have saved Leia.
I like that a lot, but man, why aren't you
Yeah.
working for Hollywood, man? What
you
the
know.
hell?
Why weren't you on? Never mind.
But that's just me.
Okay, that's a great idea.
I like your movie better.
My biggest problem with the Disney trilogy and modern movies in general is that these directors and storytellers, they come up with set pieces that they want to shoehorn into their movies, and then they try to adjust the story to justify them being there, as opposed to actually having them be a natural outgrowth of the story. Like, let's just talk about the opening bomber scene for a minute.
This is a
typically
big sticking point for me.
Typically, as a writer,
Okay.
if you're going to do a battle scene like the one at the beginning of this movie, you would sit there from a meta point of view, like the 30,000 foot view of someone observing this battle. And you would say, okay, what are the attackers doing? Now, based off of that, what would the defenders do? Based off of that, how would the attackers respond? And you would go through beat for beat how the battle operates until you get to the end of the battle that you want to happen. And then you would sit there and you would look for holes, or you would look for reversals, or you would look for, ways in which things could be, wrenches could be thrown into the mix. And that's good storytelling. That's just good practice. You could tell that Rian Johnson didn't put hardly any effort into how he wanted this scene to play out, because the military strategy in the scene doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But you could tell that he wanted to have a set piece where he had a World War II style bombing run on, the German U-boat or whatever it was. And, that goes back to his influence of, okay, he was like, well, George Lucas based the final scene in New Hope off of
World War II dogfighting.
Sorry.
You said J.J. Abrams' name, or you said Rian Johnson's name.
Yeah. Off of George Lucas's, World War II dogfights in A New Hope. And so he was like, well, I want to pay homage to that by having my version of a World War II bombing run.
Yep.
And so he created these bombers that make absolutely no sense within the context of the universe or in outer space. But the funniest thing was when I was rewatching this, like there's a scene where, Poe is talking to BB-8 as he's making his assault on the dreadnought. And he's like, we got to get rid of those cannons or our bombers are toast. And I'm like, well, your bombers are toast anyway, because as soon as they launch their TIE fighters, they're dead.
Yeah.
And the whole aspect of there being gravity in space
Okay, hold on.
with those bombs.
Continue on your point, but I'm going to argue this one stupid nitpicky thing that people pick apart is the dumbest criticism of this scene. But other than that, I completely agree with you. So go ahead, continue on, and then I'll defend the stupid bomber thing.
You don't have to do that.
I'm going to.
You
Because
really
it's dumb. It's dumb. Dude, magnets, springs, literally anything to make something go down. And then once it's in the vacuum of space, it will just continue to go down. So the idea, you can't drop bombs in space, that's the stupidest argument for this scene. There are so many other dumb things that he already pointed out about this scene that make no sense. To nitpick the freaking bombs dropping is the dumbest shit you could possibly think of.
Did you watch how they dropped?
They go straight down.
They dropped like they were at a B-17 flying over Germany.
No, they don't.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
They go straight down, and then the ship continues
they
forward.
rattle.
Because the ship at 2 miles per hour slowly got to the center of the ship, and then the bomb bay doors open.
Yeah.
And then they go through the whole thing. Oh, where she's got to kick the wrench or whatever.
Yeah.
And how did
And then
dramatic.
she pushes a button, and the thing releases.
Yeah.
Ka-dunk, and then they fall.
Yeah.
and how is she able to still breathe when
Yeah,
those
it's
doors
There's
are
nonsense.
obviously a force field there.
Yeah,
Force fields have
I'm
been
okay with the
established.
force field, but it's just the dumbest fucking thing I ever
It's
saw.
not a good scene. However, A,
I understand what you're saying.
The bombs
But
dropping is a nitpick.
That's not how space works.
And so many people get
That's
hung
not
up.
how Star Wars works.
So many. Yeah, they should
So
just
if
have
there's
a
a force
Y-wing.
field,
Where's the Y-wing?
If the bomb's dropping from within the confines of the ship at first, where there is an artificial gravity before it hits the force field, it already has the inertia of that motion, and then once it crosses through the threshold of the force field, it's just already moving in that motion, and the vacuum of space is going to carry it.
But how is it able to pass the force field?
But I don't know. That's fucking made up science. I'm just talking about
How
physics.
does ships fly through the force field at the hangar bay doors?
Yeah.
That's a Star Wars thing. It's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But still, it's just the whole concept of that scene where they're slowly moving in, at like 2 miles, 5 miles per hour. And,
I'm sorry.
How did that one ship survive the onslaught of the TIE fighters?
And in addition to that, why didn't Hux's ships, which weren't that far away, why didn't they launch all their TIE fighters to go and support the defense of the dreadnought?
I'm glad I didn't watch this movie more than once.
I cannot defend the military strategy behind this scene because it makes no sense.
And also,
it's like, there's this one ship hovering over your whatever that's going to blow up the entire dreadnought if all the bombs hit in this one spot. It should just blow up one spot.
I could understand like if these bombers were like heavily fortified, like you could take 1,000 TIE fighters and it still wouldn't damage the armor on these heavy big bombers. I'd make sense, but these things were like tissue paper.
Yeah.
And what's worse is in terms of military strategy, when the dreadnought comes out of hyperspace and they target the planet first as opposed to the ships that could escape at any moment, it's like from a military standpoint, the planet's not going anywhere. You could shoot at that anytime. So you prioritize the target that could get away. And so you would think that, to add some stakes to this, they would be targeting the fleet, and that would actually justify Poe's, attack on this thing, because he's like, if we don't take this thing out, our fleet's toast, because for whatever reason we can't go to light speed yet. And just from the attacker's point of view, it makes more sense strategically to go after the targets that are, at higher risk of getting away than hitting the planet. And this is the type of thing where if a competent storyteller had been writing this movie.
Exactly. Tell us that new T-shirt again, Matthew Cadis. What's that new T-shirt again?
I chalk it up to bad writing.
There we go.
But
Amen.
But this movie is full of scenes like that are just problematic to their core. Yeah. Because they were not well thought out.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is like when you watch this movie, there are little details that are in this movie that justify a lot of these bad decisions. Like if you look at the final scene where Luke is fighting Kylo Ren on Crate, there are shots in that scene that show that Luke is not leaving footprints.
Yep.
And if you're not I didn't notice this until like my 8th watch.
Really?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
So like there are little things in this movie where if you're not paying enough attention at the time that they're shown, you completely miss it. Like for instance, when DJ overheard Finn talking to Poe about the Resistance's plan of escape, I missed that the first couple of times I saw this movie, and so I always wondered how did DJ know what the Resistance's plan was in order to betray them to the Empire? To me, that seemed like a plot hole, but there's one shot in the movie where they show DJ reacting to hearing this information when he's in the shuttle with Finn, and it's like just a couple seconds long. Okay. So if you're not paying attention, it's very easy to miss.
Yeah, I felt that same way because my most recent rewatch of The Force Awakens, there was actually a line in there, and for the last couple of years, I was kind of like caught up in this whole social media negativity about The Last Jedi and why Luke was on this island by himself. There's a line in The Force Awakens where Han says Luke felt responsible. He walked away from everything and disappeared. Like that's in the movie. So and he's actually, it seems like he's got a chip on his shoulder about it. Yeah. For the longest time, I felt like it was a Rian Johnson decision to take the story in that direction. But when I rewatched The Force Awakens recently, I was like, oh shit, no, this was like lightly established. Like there's a way you could work around it if you wanted to, but
no, I think it was established. I just think it was also one of those decisions, like he said earlier, like about them trolling the fans. It's just like, Luke wasn't, he's in the first movie for 3 seconds.
And the most egregious scene in this entire movie was the whole Canto Bite subplot.
Okay.
You could have easily cut that subplot out
really?
completely from the
You thought
movie,
that was-
and it wouldn't have affected.
No, I say that all the time. He's absolutely right. You totally can
take the whole thing.
No,
Take the
whole thing out.
I agree.
Has no
I
effect.
don't consider it the most egregious. I consider it the most unnecessary to the
Okay.
plot. To cut that 15 minutes out. The most egregious scene in this entire movie is Luke sucking on that alien sea capsule.
No,
No.
Okay.
It's Luke firing up the lightsaber, about to kill his kid, his nephew.
let's
because
talk-
that would
okay.
not have happened.
Because I feel like this is probably going to take most of the Last Jedi discussion time out of it. So let's just.
That's all I'm gonna talk about.
Let's talk about Luke. Let's discuss Luke. What happened to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, and why does it upset so many friggin' people? Because, like, this is gonna take the rest of the
turned
podcast.
their hero into a space hobo.
Okay.
Basically, is what they did.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Well, they also completely contradict the character that we've all known and loved for over 30 years.
Let's take it from a character
Totally.
standpoint. So the last time we saw Luke Skywalker, he had redeemed the second worst person in the galaxy.
He's pretty bad. Baby killing, planet killing, woman choking.
Exactly. Yeah. So Darth
Jedi
Vader,
killing.
the guy that every other Jedi had given up on, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi gave up on Vader. Yoda gave up on Vader. Everybody was like, "This dude's evil to the core. We need to kill him. That's our only option." Luke Skywalker said, "No, there is still good in him. I will save him. And if I won't save him, it'll be because I sacrifice myself." That's where I'm going to take this. That character, that's the last time we saw him. There's no other backstory to it whatsoever except for that little segment of news from Han saying a Padawan of his turned to the dark side and he walked away from everything. That's the only line of dialogue we have as far as character development from where we last saw Luke to when we see him in The Last Jedi. Kadish, what the f*** happened to Luke Skywalker?
Well, Johnson chose to do this trope of like the fallen mentor, the fallen hero, which is, when done correctly, it can work.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Luke's character has always been that his character embodies hope. His character embodies the impossible, hope against all odds. And if you even look at his introduction into the franchise, episode 4, it's entitled A New Hope. And that's a direct reference to Luke. Luke is the character that, is the undying optimist. He's the one who believes against all odds that he can achieve the good that needs to happen in order to save the day. He leaves his training early to go save his friends. He defies all expectations to save his father. He's willing to make the ultimate sacrifice of his own life in order to redeem his dad that he's never known, who basically everyone has given up on, that is lost.
Mm-hmm.
He is the thing that, for millions of young men growing up, he is the ideal of the hero. He is the character that we all aspire to be. We all aspire to be the embodiment of hope, not just for ourselves, but for our friends, for our families. And Luke, to an entire generation, represented that. And Rian Johnson, for some reason, decided to take a piss all over that and basically say, "Oh, you thought this guy was a hero? No, he's a loser. Ray's the hero. This guy's time is done. He's old. He's forgotten. You can't save everybody. And I'm going to show you through my interpretation of this character that is the reality of the situation." And it completely negates everything George Lucas set up, everything that people loved about this character of Luke. And it cheapened his legacy and it betrayed an entire fan base. And that's why people despise this movie so much, is because it broke Star Wars in so many different ways.
Okay.
All because of this.
Luke Skywalker would have never, ever done that.
Yeah.
Ever.
Nope.
Oh,
And it, done what? Explain what you're talking about.
okay, the scene where he's standing over Kylo Ren in his sleep and he turns on his lightsaber and he has the thought to kill him. That would have never
Okay, so
happened. Even like he says, like a split second or what.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this since it was in the theater. You guys have rewatched it. I'm sure I'm kind of getting it wrong. This is my general takeaway. But all I remember is Luke Skywalker would have never, that lightsaber would have never come on. That thought would have never crossed his mind. The Luke Skywalker I knew is I can save him. Like he can be redeemed.
And even if we accept the fact that Luke did that, okay, the idea that he would have, just withdrawn from society, withdrawn from the fight, and just wanted to go somewhere to die instead of, desperately trying to redeem himself and make up for his mistake and rescue his nephew.
I mean, Yoda did it.
That's okay. So that's
well, Yoda did it, but Luke was different. Luke was supposed to be different. He
supposed to be.
like he would have never.
he's taking the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, like if he had made that mistake, he would have never stopped trying to fix that mistake until the day he died.
So I mentioned this in the last podcast where we were talking about the original trilogy. Luke Skywalker in the original trilogy was meant to be seen as the best version of a Jedi possible. He was better than Yoda because he believed in that redemption. He was better than Obi-Wan Kenobi because he believed in that redemption. That's a staple of his character. So watching him do that, where he even for a split second didn't believe that Kylo Ren was redeemable, was so shockingly different from any other version of the character that we've ever seen that it just, for a lot of people, it didn't make sense. Now, what I want to do...
never given up on a member of his family.
Never. And I think I even tweeted what you said. Like Rian Johnson just pissed all over the legacy of Luke Skywalker.
So
he really did.
In the interest of not making this podcast sound like a giant circle jerk, I do want to represent at least a portion of the fandom who believes that it's reasonable to assume that Luke is not perfect and that he would make that mistake and that he actually did correct himself in this movie. Better late than never, I think, is the only way I can describe it, where he actually tried to redeem his mistake by showing up at the end to save the rebellion and save his sister as this force projected version of himself, to stop Kylo from killing the Resistance, from killing Leia, from killing everybody in that base. So, in my personal feeling towards that is that it wasn't enough. That's not how that should have went down. Now, somebody could say to me, well, that's your version. That's what you wanted to see happen. What happened in the story was this, and you just don't like it because it's not what you would have done. Like, how do you guys feel about that? Because I see it all over the internet. The only reason why you don't like The Last Jedi is because it's not what you wanted to see.
No, not at all. It's just because it doesn't make any fucking sense. like I don't care about the canon. Like, for me personally, and I've said this to so many people for years now, I don't care about any of the other stuff. It's the Luke. To me, it's all about Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker, that would have never happened. And in fact, I don't even have qualms with him becoming like Yoda. You know, my whole issue is he would have never done that. He would have never given up hope. That lightsaber would have never come on. That kid would have never, because it's like that time paradox in any kind of time travel movie. You know what I mean? Had Luke not had that vision and not turned on it, had his doubt and turned on that lightsaber, and Kylo Ren not woke up to see it, would he have felt like the betrayal to lead himself to the dark side? Like, it's just like it just would have never happened. Luke would have never done that. You know.
I was just gonna say, this entire saga is supposed to be about the Skywalkers.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this in the next segment, but Rey isn't a Skywalker. She's a Palpatine, right? So the fact that she wasn't a Skywalker somehow is just repugnant. It's just, if they're going to give her the name, she should have been
Luke's, and they could have. They
Luke's
did that.
kid or whatever.
They did that in the extended universe. He could have had he could have had a lover. They could have had a child. He could have He could have had some kind of vision like he did in the cave about Vader, where he sees like the Padme thing, and that's what led her.
But
so he had to turn it away.
Johnson specifically didn't want her to be a Skywalker. He didn't want her to be special. He wanted to. Yeah. He wanted to kind of, I guess, decentralize the power of the Force and give it to everyone. So that nobody's special. And that's just part of his nihilistic kind of take on Star Wars.
I mean, that's like in The Incredibles. You know, if everybody's special, then nobody is. Like, that's a tagline from that movie.
But getting to your question about the people saying like, well, you didn't like it because it's not what you wanted to see.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why people don't like stuff, is because they don't want to see it. But to answer your question, it's not that I don't like it because it's not what I would have liked to have seen. I don't like it because it's not consistent with what I've seen before. Okay. It's not something that it's not something that carries over what's already been established. And it's a complete 180 in terms of Luke Skywalker, because we haven't seen Luke Skywalker in 30 years, but we know that in the face of certain death, he refused to cross over to the dark side because he knew it was the right thing to do. So when you have a character that basically, does a mistake that creates a new Darth Vader that kills all of his students and stuff like that. The idea that he would just withdraw and retreat and like let the war go without him. So like, you know, the First Order, like his mistake balloons and basically screws off the entire universe. That's not something that the Luke we know would ever do.
Well, I agree
And
with
it's
that, but I
because
also
of that inconsistency that people have a problem with the way that Luke Skywalker
well
is treated.
take it a step back though. Do you think it's consistent that he would have that thought and turn on that lightsaber? Because I don't think any of that stuff would have happened, and therefore that's why I'm like, I don't even want to waste my time with that argument. 'Cause that
I
should have
agree,
never happened.
but in terms of like, okay, if we just accept that that happened and this was the mistake that created Kylo Ren and set this whole thing in motion, it's like I'm willing to accept that, but I'm not willing to accept that Luke wouldn't try and fix that he would just kind of go someplace because he wants to die and withdraw from, you know, saving the universe.
So it's just twice as
Like
bad.
what I would have liked to have seen was that, okay, Luke withdraws to this island and he's waiting for someone to find him because he knows that in order to find him, the Force is going to be strong with that person. So he's looking he knows he can't save Kylo himself. So he's looking to wait for the Force to send him someone that he can then train to do what he can't. And that's why he withdrew, because he was waiting for something as opposed to, oh, I'm taking myself off the board.
So
like your movie better. It's better than throwing the lightsaber over your back.
There's also, yeah, exactly. There's also a moment in this movie that I feel like I may have been able to accept everything that was presented to me, including the scene with Luke, which again, because of that inconsistent narrator, or what was it? What's that? Unreliable narrator thing that Ryan Johnson was trying to use. Is that Luke could have not done what we see, but because of it was from the point of view of Kylo, what he saw, what his interpretation of the events could have been a misunderstanding, and that's what was set off this motion. And then Luke, again, I almost could have seen Luke doing what Obi-Wan and Yoda did and saying, okay, I need to take myself off the board so that I can't be used to further damage things or damage what's going to happen, and I can trust in the Force to right this wrong, and when the time comes, I will spring into action like Yoda and Obi-Wan did, and I will train the person to do something that I can't do. There's a moment in this movie that I would have been able to accept everything that happened. When he goes to the Falcon, when Luke goes into the Falcon and he sees R2-D2, and R2 like lights up and he's so happy to see Luke, and Luke is like, R2, and it's that was
one of the best scenes.
The most genuine Luke Skywalker moment in this entire movie was that interaction with R2-D2.
Probably the best scene in the movie.
Yeah, and he shows. I'm drank too much whiskey. I'm going to tear up. When R2-D2 shows Luke Skywalker the
Princess Leia,
help me Obi-Wan Kenobi moment. If he would have just done a 180 at that moment, I'm Luke Skywalker again. That triggered that memory, that triggered me to be the man I used to be. If everything from that moment on would have been Luke saying, okay, Rey, let's go do this. Let me show you how to be a Jedi. And not be like, let me show you why the Jedi need to die.
Then we'd all be talking about how R2 is the real hero of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he kind of is.
He kind of is.
The saga.
So like if that moment would have done the 180 and Luke would have went full on, leaned into like training Rey and going and confronting his mistake and confronting Kylo Ren and I have to go save my sister, like I would have been like, okay, the rest of the movie can go fuck off. Canto Bite, whatever. Yeah, leave it in. Who cares? If that moment would have been the deciding factor for Luke, I would have been like, I freaking love this movie.
I just wanted a Luke and Rey training montage. You know,
That's it.
No, you got a Rey and Rey training montage.
Yeah, right.
One of the real tragedies of this movie is we don't get to see Luke react to hearing about Han's death.
That's in a cut scene. They deleted it. It was in
That's
there.
true.
They filmed it.
I really, really wanted a scene with Luke riding around on the back of Rey.
Like that picture.
Doing flips and stuff. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Mark Hamill actually posted a picture of them
During the filming, everybody's all excited.
Yeah.
Like,
That'll be awesome. Yeah, do it.
But every subplot in this movie is problematic. Like you know, Poe's subplot where the admiral refuses to tell him the story and it leads to a mutiny. You know, a Finn's subplot where it's basically, you know, you could remove it from the film and not change anything.
Yeah. Finn got done dirty in this movie.
Like the whole Force Skyping.
4 hours, baby.
the Force Skype power being introduced. It was kind of funny rewatching this because in the one scene where Luke is kind of training Rey and he's like, what do you think the Force is? And she's like, well, it's something that you use to lift rocks. And he's like, that's not what the Force is. And then like at the end of the movie, she's like, she uses it to lift rocks.
So
and it's like, it's like, wow.
I actually want to say something about that because people say like, oh, Dwayne Johnson doesn't understand the Force. I'm like, honestly, to tell you the truth, that scene where Luke is describing the Force and they have that little like violence, cold, death, life, like that little sequence where Rey is discovering what the Force is on the island and what it means and what creates it. Like that was one of the better explanations for what the Force is. Like apart from Yoda talking to Luke and describing what it is, like that scene, I felt like was pretty on point.
I think one of the real issues with this movie is its timetable. It's basically part 2 of The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
and it all happens over the course of like
36 hours.
Yeah.
So
and it was just too short of a time period because basically Rey was with Luke for like 2 days. And everyone, I mean, that's really not enough time for a Jedi to be trained.
No, at the bare minimum, Luke was with Yoda for, I think, 2 weeks.
Well, she doesn't have to be trained because she's got absorption powers.
Yeah, she downloaded her
it with her
But
Force
she does. It's funny because in the
Whoa, I know Kung Fu.
exactly,
that's
yes.
it.
So
Matrix.
Which is bringing that up, like in The Force Awakens, where we talked about like she downloaded the Force powers from Kylo, and then that's what kind of set her on her course and gave her her abilities. But then in this movie,
that's still headcanon.
In this movie, yeah, it's in the novel, but whatever. In this movie, it kind of goes back where she like doesn't understand the Force anymore, and she has to go through the whole training thing again. It's just an inconsistency because these two movies really aren't that connected.
The biggest issue here is like stuff happens in the third movie that should have happened in the first movie.
We'll talk about that.
Like Rey training, Leia being set up to have trained as a Jedi.
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff that they retroactively realized, oh, these are plot holes. We should try to fill them by the third movie.
Yeah. Well, I have an argument about that, and we'll talk about it. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about The Last Jedi besides Luke?
I could go off.
I know you can, but like
He's not allowed to speak.
the important stuff.
We're 2 hours and 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
I told you guys we had an hour and a half. And we're not even to the third movie yet.
So anything else about The Last Jedi besides Luke that we would like to address?
The Holdo maneuver?
Ooh, how about Admiral Gender Studies?
Okay, so let's talk about Holdo for a minute.
So apparently it was a 1 in a million chance.
Look,
Okay.
look on his face.
He's so done.
Oh, God.
So done. Okay,
Danny,
so
what did you think about the Holdo maneuver when you first
I'll be
saw
honest
it?
with you. I thankfully don't even fucking remember it.
Really?
Oh wow! Like you guys don't understand. I wasn't kidding about the whole molestation thing. I rate this up there with that painful
we
memory.
don't have to
I'm
talk.
trying not to remember.
I'm just saying.
No,
Okay.
you guys finish. I don't know why I got to use the restroom
I
again.
do too.
I do too, yeah.
Oh
Okay,
wow!
so let's finish up
Bunch
real
of old
quick.
men with
Holdo
tiny
maneuver
bladders.
breaks the entire
Breaks everything.
right?
Yeah.
I
Everything.
liked visually. I thought it was friggin' awesome.
I
This
love
is the part where they're running out of gas, like in Battlestar Galactica.
It's the part
after
it's the
that.
part where Holdo goes to light speed.
And
Yeah.
okay, now I remember that.
Okay.
That was kind. It looked cool.
It looked cool, right?
cool.
But it broke everything we know about Lightspeed.
Yeah.
Even in Rogue One, which came out after.
No,
right?
it came out right before.
Did it right before?
Yeah.
When everybody was going to Lightspeed trying to leave Scarif, and Vader's ship came in, and they were halfway through Lightspeed, and they just crashed into Vader's ship. Like there's inconsistencies all over the
they
place.
weren't in halfway into Lightspeed. They were getting ready
getting
to
ready.
go into
You don't think so?
Lightspeed.
Oh, am I? Okay, maybe.
No, that's what happens when a ship comes out of Lightspeed right in front of your face, and you crash into it.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that doesn't break that canon?
No.
Okay. But the Death Star run, like just take a...
No, the Holdo maneuver breaks everything.
Yeah, the Holdo maneuver basically, it makes you wonder, okay, if a ship going at light speed can have that type of destructive force against a fleet, why didn't in the Battle of Endor, right before a capital ship was about to be destroyed, why didn't Admiral Akbar say, hey, why don't you save us a bunch of trouble and just light speed into that fleet over there?
Or just put some Lightspeed engines on some asteroids and plow them into the Death Star.
Yeah. Why do you need a Death Star when you could just have like a light speed missile hit a planet?
Yeah, that's it.
What's the T-shirt again, guys?
I'll chalk it up to bad writing.
There we go.
It's terrible.
All right. Real quick.
Yeah, it actually retroactively creates plot holes in the franchise, which I had never seen before.
I did appreciate how JJ retconned it in the next movie.
Yeah, but his
was a
retcon
one
was
in
the
a million.
laziest retcon ever.
What else was he
Absolutely.
Okay, if you were given that movie and you say, "Hey, figure out a way to explain how this happens," what would you have said?
I'd have had the bad guys create new shields that prevented it.
It's like, yeah. I think it's funny because JJ went into that movie.
That doesn't
He
explain-
probably had a sheet of paper, like 6 or 7 things that he had to fix
Yeah.
from that.
Well, that's
abysmal
okay.
movie.
All right, one of my
But let's talk about that in a minute after we have a bathroom break, okay?
One of my personal favorite tweet threads that I ever made was somebody said that nothing about the Rise of Skywalker retcons The Last Jedi.
Oh, bullshit.
And I went through and I said, Exhibit A, Kylo Ren's helmet. Exhibit B, like the light speed
Holdo
ramming,
maneuver.
the Holdo maneuver. Exhibit C, the Knights of Ren.
The big problem with The Last Jedi is basically it feels like the end of a saga as opposed to the middle part of
Yeah,
the
I mean the way it ends with the other kid, and it's like I fucking hate that movie so much.
Boy.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the Battle of Crate and how problematic that
It's
thing
salty.
is.
Where I
Yeah.
got my name from.
Yeah. It's
All right,
red.
guys.
It's red.
It's red. It's a beautiful fight.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh,
So it makes
there's a
zero
moment.
sense.
Okay, so for the longest time, and I have to admit I was wrong. I'm going to say this for everybody who hates me
But
on
you're,
Twitter.
You're always wrong.
Shut up, Kiddish. There is a moment in the movie where Poe Dameron says, "Okay, we've activated the shield. Now they can't hit us from orbit."
Yeah, it's another one of those details that if you're not paying close attention to the movie,
Yeah, but God, they landed those
for the-
walkers way the hell out there.
So did they. They did the same thing in Empire Strikes Back. So for the longest time, I was like, this battle doesn't make any freaking sense because why didn't they just hit him from orbit? It's never established that they have a shield. I was hardcore. I was like, this movie, it's stupid. I was wrong.
When did they?
It's just-
when did they take the shield generator out?
They never did. They just walked through it.
So
It's just to prevent an orbital
strike
attack.
Yeah,
They opened up the shield.
so the battering ram
it went
laser
through the
goes
shield.
through the shield.
Yeah.
that's why they had to advance before they could turn it on.
Exactly. So I was wrong. Like the Battle of Crate, as of right now, makes as much sense as the Empire Strikes Back.
The funniest thing to me is like they're in these super maneuverable speeders and they're going in a straight line right at like the encroaching force, where it's just like, hey, why don't you split off and do a flanking maneuver? Those things can't turn sideways all that quickly. Come up from behind the battering ram and blow it up that way.
They just wanted to make pretty red contrails
Yeah,
behind
no,
the
they
ships.
wanted to make a pretty shot, and because what's the T-shirt, Mr. Kiddish?
chalk
Chalk
it up to bad writing. Yeah, like if Ryan Johnson had just spent like 3 minutes actually thinking through his battle strategies, like he might have written a better battle strategy.
If he would have,
But the whole idea that like Poe Dameron learns his lesson and says like, oh, we can't do this
there's
suicide run because even though if they this is the last stand and even though if they get that battering ram off, we're all dead. Like that was one of the dumbest decisions I think I've ever seen in the history of film.
I have a big problem with the message of this movie. Right, the singular message that goes through this movie time and time again is self-sacrifice is not the way to go, right? So Paige Tico, the Rose Tico's sister who sacrifices herself to destroy the dreadnought at the very beginning of the movie, Leia's like, we sacrifice people to win a victory that we should not have done.
Oh, Alex, you're not going to win fighting what you hate.
Okay, so that's the other thing too, right? So
You're going to win saving what you love.
continue on. Again, Finn trying to sacrifice himself to save the rebellion, to save the resistance. Nope. Rose Tico's like, nope, that's a bad thing. Don't do that.
Who?
Rose Tico. You have her action figure, sir.
I got it for $1, $2 as a
General Holdo.
What was it?
Sacrifices herself.
Vice Admiral.
Whatever. Sacrifices. What the is this Vice Admiral?
that's what you get, purple hair.
It's a female admiral.
Sacrifices herself to save the rebellion, right? This is the same theme. Paige Tico sacrifices herself. Vice Admiral Holdo sacrifices herself to save the rebellion. Finn tries to do it. All of a sudden, it's a bad thing. Nope, can't do that. That's against our code. We need to save what we love. And then Luke Skywalker sacrifices himself to save the rebellion. Like there's such this inconsistent message about what is okay to sacrifice yourself for and what is not okay to sacrifice yourself for.
I like how Poe has to figure out what Luke's plan is instead of Luke just saying like, oh, by the way, I'm doing this to buy you guys time to escape before he goes out there.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Just one?
How did Luke give Leia the dice when he was a hologram?
They disappeared.
Did they disappear?
Yeah, they
Okay,
disappeared.
never mind.
They were a hologram.
Edit that out
also.
because I don't remember.
They were a tangible hologram that she could hold.
It was just like Luke. The
That's
dice.
pretty good.
It's a pretty good hologram.
Well, they showed Luke getting the dice from the Falcon.
right, I remember that. That was the R2 scene.
And so like he gives the dice to Leia, but it's force projected dice. And so after he dies, they disappear.
Like I'm okay with new force powers. I think new force powers are cool. Like I grew up playing the video games, and the video games were just like they had force powers galore. But when they, it's just,
Well, yeah, but those all kind of made sense in a first-person shooter game, but they're not being used as MacGuffins as
yeah,
a plot point in the movie.
yeah, like force projection. I like they did set up the fact that Kylo early on when he was talking to Rey was like, you don't have the power to project your.
I mean, come on, let's be real here. I mean, if you don't want to play a first-person shooter game, when all you can do is choke somebody and say, "These aren't the droids we're looking for."
There's mind
Ooh,
tricking.
that's a fun game.
decades of pent-up jealousy that Star Trek has transporters and Star Wars doesn't. So they wanted to solve that argument by saying,
we're
Jedi's
totally
can
gonna do
force
this.
project.
We're totally doing a Star Trek episode.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Nemesis is a unsung hero in that franchise.
Shut up.
Anyway, all right, go take your bathroom break, and then we'll talk about the Rise of Skywalker. All right, now that I have everybody by themselves, you guys can go to saltynerd.com. If you like what you're hearing, you can go there and support all of our other podcasts. Give us a like and a subscribe. You can go to saltynerdclub.com. Shut up for a second. I'm doing a commercial. You can go to saltynerdclub.com for our Patreon. If you can support us, you can give us $1, give us some cheddar, give us some love, whatever. You can go saltynerdclub.com, go to our Patreon account. Also, we're on YouTube where we have daily content coming out. You guys can go to saltynerdvideo.com and like and subscribe. Help us build a channel. We're working on getting 50,000 subscribers. That's right. That's a huge goal, but it's a milestone that we can't wait to hit. 50,000 subscribers will help us on our way where we can do this podcast full time. We can give you guys content every day. We can talk about movies. We can talk about film. We can talk about TV shows, new things that come out. We can talk about news, whatever you guys want to hear. If you like our content, help us grow it. Thanks, guys. All right, everybody, let's talk about.
Whiskey.
Let's talk about whiskey.
Let's talk about whiskey.
I really wish
You better get going because we're going to get derailed really quick.
we could get a local whiskey
Distillery.
to sponsor this podcast because we would have so much fun with that.
Episode 9 brought to you by Jack Daniels, everybody.
The only way to watch episode 9.
Let's talk about the Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, yes. Let's.
J.J. Abrams gets called back to, in my opinion, I think Lucasfilm was like, hey, can you come back and please try and put this shit back together for us?
I'll bet he was just.
I don't think he wanted to do it.
I don't think Lucasfilm was like that. I think Disney was like that.
I think
I don't think Kathleen. I think Kathleen
okay.
Kennedy was perfectly fine with how The Last Jedi played out.
You're looking at it as two different entities then?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Bob Iger went to JJ and he's like, look, I know you don't want to come back, but you need to come back.
Yeah.
And JJ didn't have a choice.
Here's a Scrooge McDuck building
What
size
makes
of
you
money
think
for
he
you.
didn't have a choice? Why wouldn't he just be like, no, you're on your own? Because he had a deal with Disney with Robot, right? With
No.
Bad Robot?
Not really. I think his deal was with Warner Brothers. And he also had a deal at Paramount. But I think that Bob Iger basically said, like, look, you don't want to piss me off.
Yeah.
Come back and help fix this mess.
I run 55% of the entertainment industry.
Yeah. And so JJ was basically in a no-win situation where he's
Okay.
like, well, I got to come back.
That makes sense.
And plus, I think he was also kind of a little bit pissed off about what Rian Johnson did. Because if you look at The Rise of Skywalker, it's very obvious that JJ had certain things in mind for what he wanted episode 2 or episode 8 to be.
Yeah.
Like, the whole, like, getting rid of Kylo's mask. I think JJ always wanted Kylo Ren to have the mask. And then when he made the transition to Ben Solo
Get rid
for
of
the
it then.
redemption, take the mask off and show Adam Driver's face.
Yeah.
So, like, bringing back the mask, retconning the Holdo maneuver, all these things, like showing Rey getting trained, showing Leia and her training. Like, he just had to do so much stuff to fix what Rian Johnson broke.
Yeah. So I'll start out by saying, because this is pretty much the only thing that I really have to say about this movie. I found this movie way more entertaining and way more in the vein of Star Wars than The Last Jedi. Well, when I watched it recently,
It's still dumb as shit.
It's terrible. It's a mess. It's frustrating and it's bad.
I feel like JJ went online, went to Reddit, went to Twitter, went to some other places, wrote down like 100 different things
that people wanted
put them
to
all
see.
in a paper bag, pulled out like 15 different things that he can put in the movie randomly, and just barfed them up on the movie
Okay,
screen.
I disagree. I like your sentiment because it's funny, but I disagree with you. I honestly think that JJ had at least a outline of what he wanted to see. Hold on a second. So my takeaway from this movie, in my opinion, when I'm watching it, I see episodes 8 and 9 squeezed into one movie. And episode 8,
Yes.
JJ's episode 8
Totally agree.
is essentially Indiana Jones relic hunt for ancient Sith and original trilogy backstory stuff, where the characters from the new trilogy are going back in and searching the remnants of the movies that we fell in love with in the original trilogy, the old Death Star, all these other plot lines that have to do with like ancient Sith and Palpatine and this and that, and all these little hints as to what Snoke's really up to and blah 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 blah. Like I felt like all of that was all episode 8 for JJ. The whole plot line with a spy within the First Order, like that all of it. The first 45 to 1 hour of the Rise of Skywalker is what I feel like essentially is what JJ wanted to do with episode 8.
I totally agree. I said that as soon as I left the theater.
Yeah.
And
When I break it down and I try to write down like which plot lines are which and how everything kind of would make sense if you were to look at it from that third person perspective, I'm like, that actually sounds kind of fun. Like watching Finn, Rey, and Poe go on an adventure together to find out like who's the spy in the First Order and find out where's Rey's parentage came from, and this ancient, this Sith hunter that was working with Palpatine with this dagger that would tell you the direction to where to find this waypoint to find out who really Snoke is. Like all of that felt like, okay, if you put that in a movie along with Rey training on whatever planet it would be with Luke, like all of that put together, that's a solid middle episode. And the revelation that Rey is a Palpatine, that's that I am your father moment for this episode. Like it's all there.
Yeah.
If you break it down, it's all there. JJ had an idea for what he wanted to do. It got completely derailed. And he was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to squeeze all of this in the first hour.
Yeah, a lot of my friends that I talk to feel the exact same way. They feel like they just tried to squeeze in what he wanted, and like they just tried to ignore or retcon The Last Jedi and put JJ's 8 and 9 together in one movie.
Yeah, Luke.
Which is why this movie, you guys were talking about Force Awakens being fast. This movie's neck break fast.
No,
It's just
ridiculous.
boom, boom, boom.
Me and Kadish were in the theater together. We went to go see this movie together, and he was sitting
thanks
right
for
next
that,
to me.
by the way.
You were busy. You were working.
We
or something.
invited you, dude. You couldn't come.
Could have waited till I wasn't working.
And we like
a lot to ask.
when Poe was doing the whole like fast tracking through light speed and
the
trying
hyperspace skipping?
hyperspace
That was
skipping.
a joke.
Oh God.
Kadish looks over at me. He's like, "What the f- is happening?" I'm like, "I don't know." That was one of the funniest moments I think I've ever. It was
Yeah,
so
talk
funny.
about something that doesn't make any sense.
hyperspace
skipping.
skipping. It's a new thing. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
But I mean, like,
But anyway,
it still takes time to travel through hyperspace, and they were like literally teleporting to like different planets.
yeah. I'm just going to get this out of the way, and I do agree with you with the hyperspace skipping thing. But like in my opinion, I think JJ, if he would have been given all 3 movies, I think there could have been a solid follow through with this trilogy and with these characters.
I sort of agree,
No, I completely agree.
but
That's all I'll say
That's
about
not
it.
what we got.
Yeah, it's not what we got.
Here's the real problem with this movie.
Hit me.
So first of all, JJ hired the completely wrong screenwriter
oh God, yes.
to work on this. Chris Terrio, the writer of Batman versus Superman,
God, that movie sucks.
and Justice League.
God, that movie sucks even more.
Chris Terrio, he's an Oscar-winning screenwriter for having adapted Argo, which I guess you can win an award if you can steal from good source material. But left to his own devices,
Talk to Benioff and Weiss.
yeah, left to his own devices, Chris Terrio has proven time and time again that he doesn't know how to write a story that isn't convoluted up the ass. Like there were so many things going on with the Rise of Skywalker. And if you look at the production of this thing, they were rewriting the script on set. They had to go back and do extensive reshoots using the Mandalorian's green screen set technology.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like 2 or 3 months before the movie came out. They were still doing this, right?
But they were able to use the virtual set technology that the Mandalorian was using to actually quickly do like massive amounts of reshoots.
Yeah.
And it was all because they had no idea what story they were trying to do, what movie they were trying to make. And they literally assembled this thing out of a hodgepodge of stuff in the editing room. Like if you look at this movie, at all the plot holes that are in it, it's ridiculous. Like remember when I pointed out to you how when Kylo Ren crashes his TIE fighter in the desert and the Wayfinder's there and it explodes. And then later on when when Rey steals his second ship from the Death Star and flies to Octu, and somehow the Wayfinder is there and in perfect condition. Yeah. And these things are not sturdy because Kylo Ren literally steps on one and breaks it.
And he crushes it with his hand.
Yeah, and yet it's able to survive an explosion at 100 miles an hour and somehow magically teleport into the new TIE fighter.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much stuff like that in this movie.
You can tell it's like 5 different movies that they just spliced together.
Like when she's in the wreckage of the Death Star and there are doors that still open automatically for her.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
It was the Force.
The Force.
The Force did it.
Force MacGuffin.
The Force just opened up.
Why was there a hiss?
Anyway, no, I just like in that kind of circumstance, in the context of that scene, it was just kind of like doesn't make any sense. Never mind. Go ahead.
A lot of this movie didn't make. It's like, hey, we have to go to this other desert planet, and we have to find this long lost Sith relic hunter that nobody hasn't seen in forever. But yet his ship is just kind of sitting on top of this rock.
And it still works.
Like a couple miles outside of the festival grounds for all these weird squid people. Yeah. And it still runs. And of course, we're going to land in the sand right on top of the snake where the dagger is. So we're going to, just.
And how do you have quicksand over a network of tunnels?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But
it's amazing.
We kind of skipped my favorite part. I was curious about the movie experience because it sounded like all of us hated The Last Jedi, so why the hell did any of us go see it at the theater, the Rise of Skywalker?
Morbid curiosity.
Star Wars.
I'm a completionist.
Honestly, to tell you the truth, the reason why I wanted to go see Rise of Skywalker in theater is because I honestly wanted to see what JJ was going to do to address the problems that The Last Jedi brought up. I was curious. I was like, is he going to completely retcon? Is he going to try and feed off of that storyline that was left for him and go in that direction? It was just curiosity. I'm like, what is he going to do?
Did you go like opening night? Did you go early? Did you wait?
Was it opening night?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was opening night on Thursday. Me and him went.
Yeah.
I mean, first off,
how about you?
I am just getting whiskey.
Blitzed. I love it.
First off, any movie that says Star Wars in the title should be an instant billion-dollar movie. It's just going to be, whether people
tell that to Solo
because that's another subject. But
you can blame me for that.
There's going to be people like us that are Star Wars fans, but not sequel fans. But we're going to go watch this movie, whether we want to or not. We're still going to go watch this movie, and there's just a built-in audience there, right? Yeah. And no, there's not.
I wasn't going to go, and I did not go opening night. My son, my youngest son, who lives with me, just beat me down because he wanted to see it so damn bad. So I took him to see it. And the funny thing was, when I left, I was like, thank God it wasn't as bad as The Last Jedi. The bar was so fucking low for me.
One of the things that me and Katie both said when we walked out of this movie, it was like, it was way more entertaining.
Yeah, no, it's a rewatchable movie too.
Yeah.
Because just watching it.
I don't know about
you don't think so? No, I was watching it. Well, granted, I've only watched it twice.
I've only watched it
right
twice
before we started recording this.
I finished it today before we finished. Yeah,
and my thought at the end was like, I saw some new points I didn't see before. I picked up on some things I didn't pick up on before, and it felt like I was like, I could watch this again.
I feel like this movie is a lot like The Force Awakens in the sense that the more I see it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's so many things. Like for instance, one of my biggest issues with the sequel trilogy as a whole is the whole Maz Kanata that's a story for another time. We never find out how she was able to come in possession of Anakin's
That's
lightsaber.
true. Do they do that in a comic
book.
They do?
But
Do they?
But
think.
in addition to that, there's this thing where, so the entire movie, Finn's trying to tell Rey something, and you get the sense that he's trying to profess his feelings for her,
That's what I thought.
and he never actually tells us what he was trying to tell her.
Yeah, and then they say in
They-
like
they
the
just completely
interviews,
drop
it's
it.
the fact that he was
It's
force sensitive.
Heavily implied that he's
Also, yeah, like the whole thing about him being force sensitive, completely like where'd that come from? I know that JJ kind of set it up in The Force Awakens,
Yeah.
but that was something that was completely absent from The Last Jedi.
Well, I don't know. Have they ever shown? Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna get shit for this. Have they ever shown anyone who's not a Jedi wielding a lightsaber
No,
successfully?
Finn is the first person.
so
Well,
he,
no,
like that
Han
to
Solo.
me.
Well, he
He didn't yield it. He just cut a tauntaun. I'm
But he-
talking about
I
like
mean,
used
Finn
it-
was using the thing.
Yeah, he was
you know,
fighting with
you
it.
know.
Against Kylo Ren.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like so to
And he got his
me,
ass
I was
handed to
like,
him.
yeah,
Got his ass handed to him.
sure did, but
Good. That's character development.
Here's my point. So the whole force sensitivity with Finn thing just came off as a Deus Ex Machina, because there's a moment towards the beginning of the third act where Finn magically just knows which Star Destroyer to target, and there's no way he could have known that, other than like, oh, let's just have the Force tell him.
use the force.
Yeah, and it was never really set up until that point. I mean, like there were little hints of it, but it was never explicitly stated that Finn had the Force on his side at that point.
Yeah. Again,
I
this
like
is
that word,
what?
Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina. So
I'm sorry.
my argument
I'm just,
my argument about that is that like in the context of the films that we've got in theaters, which I can't argue with, is what we were presented. There is no context for him being force sensitive. However, if you were to look at it as J.J. Abrams' trilogy, he kind of sets up in The Force Awakens that Finn might be force sensitive, and then if you look
But normally that's something that you'd expand upon in the middle
yeah, and
movie.
then and they did arguably. If you look at the first half of Rise of Skywalker,
No,
Finn-
I'm
He's
talking
talking
about The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi, which totally, exactly.
Here's the thing, though, and it's the only thing I'm going to say positive about this movie. But in my head, okay, I can watch The Force Awakens, completely skip The Last Jedi, and watch whatever this one's called,
Rise of Skywalker.
and feel like it's a story.
Yeah.
I don't need The Last Jedi to watch these other two movies now.
Totally don't. That's why I don't own. I own every Star Wars movie on Blu-ray except for The Last Jedi.
I just
I
feel
will
like-
not buy that movie.
I just feel like The Rise of Skywalker is the epitome of lazy storytelling.
Yeah,
I think
there
it was,
are so many plot threads that are completely dropped or don't make any sense in this movie. Rey's standing on that cliffside where she figures out how to use the dagger to pinpoint where the Wayfinder is. It's like, if you put 2 seconds of thought into how that actually works, the fact that, okay, someone carved that knife at
like
that
a
exact same place.
Goonies homage.
Yeah,
though, man.
yeah, like you, and just by happenstance, she's standing in the exact place that you need to stand in order to like do that. I mean, it completely falls apart.
You didn't like that scene in Goonies either? They did the same thing in Goonies.
Goonies is
Whoa.
Goonies is a shit movie.
Whoa.
don't get Alex started on Goonies.
Goonies.
But Goonies has that sensibility of like it's a lot more whimsical, whereas this film,
Chalk it up to lazy writing.
Get your shirts now.
this film just has so many plot issues with it that don't make any freaking sense.
I'll say this one thing in defense of this movie is that it was constantly trying to play catch up. And if you were to, if given the time in all three movies, in a trilogy, if the second movie was given the time to breathe and they established that they had to go to this particular spot and they were able to say like, hey, this knife only works if you're on this cliffside of Endor, here's the map, here's this, here's that. This movie is forced to gloss over a majority of the explanation as to how all this stuff works because it has to fit two movies in one.
That's what it's doing.
It also feels like everything was just thrown into the kitchen sink here. Like the whole Palpatine returning as the main villain, that just kind of came out of nowhere. And that was because they killed off Snoke in the second movie. So JJ had to figure out a way to bring back a big bad for the heroes to fight against.
I used to agree with you, and I used to agree with that idea that like JJ just pulled this out of a hat just to get people's butts in seats in the theater to bring Palpatine back. But when I was watching the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi together, there's a lot of like lines and mannerisms that Snoke has and Snoke's Snoke's theme in The Last Jedi is straight up Palpatine's. It's the same musical theme.
Well, it's because he's a similar character.
He was a Palpatine
I don't know.
stand-in.
I
think it's more than that.
No,
I honestly
there was no connection between The Last Jedi and
Ian
what JJ
McDiarmid
did.
literally
None.
said in an interview that they didn't ask him to come back until like a month before they started shooting Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, there's YouTube videos where people are like, Snoke is Palpatine. Here's why.
Did you
Back
just
from
listen to what you
2015.
just said? Ooh, there's a YouTube video.
All right, fine. I'll give it
Check
to you. I'll
and
give it to
mate,
you.
sir.
All right, fine.
Thank you.
Fine.
Boom.
I'll shut up now.
Knuckles across the table.
All I know
I'm
is
gonna
this,
make
when
a YouTube
I
video.
left the theater from this movie, which was the only time I'd watched it until you guys asked me to come on this podcast today, so I rewatched it. I felt infinitely better than I did when I left the theater having watched The Last Jedi. But I like some of the stuff that they did. Even though overall it is a bad movie and I don't like it, and I kind of wish that the sequel trilogy just didn't exist. I like the idea at the end of where Rey is kind of channeling all of the Jedi. I do really like that idea. But the gnarly powers that the Emperor has at the end of that movie, are we going to talk about that?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, but there are a few things I want to cover before we get to that.
Go ahead.
So first of all, so there's that scene where Rey just farts out the Force lightning, destroys the ship.
Oh, and then she thinks she kills Chewie?
Yeah. So
That's another thing. Episode 8, Chewie dies, right?
So
And
here-
we're all like, oh my God. And then episode 9, it's revealed that he's still alive.
so here's the thing.
it's
So
the Han Solo thing all over again.
when they get on Kylo's Star Destroyer, she can sense that Chewie's there.
Yeah.
Why couldn't she sense Chewie was still alive after she blew up that transport?
She was in shock. She was confused. She was in shock. She couldn't think straight. She had assumed that she had just killed him. When she was at peace, when she was calm, when she got back on the Star Destroyer and she had a mission, she was like, oh, wait a second. I sense a presence that I've not felt since.
Damn.
You know,
I'm never going to be
just
able to
caught
watch
up
that
to me what you
scene
were talking
again.
about.
Another issue is that when she uses the Jedi mind trick on the two stormtroopers that corner them,
It's okay that we're here.
yeah. So the way the Jedi mind tricks works, maybe you guys can fill me in on this. It's that it's almost like an influence nudge. Like if it goes against someone's like code or internal logic, they won't fall for it. So the idea that she can just like disarm every stormtrooper by just Jedi mind trick, like why didn't she do that on Burning Man scene where Lando shoots that guy with a crossbow? Couldn't she have just said like we're not who you think we are, and the guy's like, you're not who I think you are, and then he walks away? Like couldn't she do that with every stormtrooper they ever ran into? Just say like, you want to drop your weapons.
Because, Matt, they have to have scenes where they're chasing each other on sand snowmobiles.
But
jet launcher
it's just
packs
obvious that JJ doesn't know. Like he uses the Force to just fill in plot holes.
That's not how the Force
he doesn't
works.
actually know how it
love
works.
that line.
That's true.
I have to say, though, that like that scene that you're describing right now where the stormtroopers in the middle of this party is just one lone stormtrooper that out of nowhere, like they make a comment about it like, oh, be careful, there's first order troopers all over this place, which kind of sets up the reason why he's there. But when he shows up, he's all by himself. He shows up, that you could cut that whole thing out and it would not change anything. There's no reason for them to be there. They could have found them after they talked to Lando and then like, oh my God, the First Order's here. We got to get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
But it is funny how like Kylo Ren gets the Mardi Gras beads analyzed, and they're like, "Sir, these are from this planet, at this particular location."
That's a super plot convenience.
And instead of taking the entire Death Star there, he's like, "I'm going to get in my ship. I'm going to go there, on my own." And the idea that does hyperspace just instantly transport you anywhere you want to go now?
I always, I was wondering about that actually too last week when I was rewatching this movie. Because, it used to be a time when, you had to charter a flight to go from, Mos Eisley to Alderaan. That took a little while, right?
Yeah.
And it's not zip zap and you're there for sure.
Yeah, but with hyperspace skipping, it just teleports you anywhere you want to go.
After, how long did it take the rebellion to get to Endor when they were in whatever Never Never Land rebellion area? And they were like, all right, guys, let's form up and let's go to Endor. Like, it was pretty quick.
Why does Why do they have to fly through the red
The space cancer.
weird space cancer?
Because it looks
let's
cool.
just fly
Okay,
around
so the only thing that when I was watching this movie, that the only thing that they said that separated Exegol from the rest of the universe is they said it's in the unknown regions. So it's just like the Kessel Run. Why can't people just fly through the Kessel Run?
So is
Because
God there
because
like
there's-
in Star Trek 5?
Giant space squids out there.
Q is God in Star Trek.
I also like how on Exegol, the ships don't know which way is up. And that's why they're stuck in the atmosphere until the beacon can guide them out.
Except for when they go to that one planet. They were
Zori Bliss's planet.
Yeah, Zori Bliss's planet. When they destroy that one planet, Poe is like, they sent one Star Destroyer to go destroy this planet to send a message to the rest of us. So like that one was good. He was cool. He's like, I know where to go. But when the whole fleet of
I know which way is up.
when like thousands of Star Destroyers were like, how do we get out of here? And they're like, we don't know.
And why would Palpatine announce his presence before his master plan is executed? Why
Because
would
he's got an ego.
The dead speak.
the dead speed?
In the opening crawl.
But the idea that, okay, these ships don't know which way is up is one of the laziest
Is it
freaking
like-
plot
Yeah,
devices.
you know who
What's that
knows
t-shirt,
which way
ladies
is
and
up?
gentlemen?
Space horses know which way is up.
Rose Tico knows which way is up.
Okay, so before we're basically just talking about memes at this point.
We totally are. Whiskey.
Whiskey is the fault of this. So, like, my point stands. Like, honestly, I feel like if JJ was given the entire trilogy, we could have had 3 solid, maybe not perfect. I will give you, like, not the greatest writer,
We'd have
especially
had 3 passable
Star Wars movies. If the Last Jedi, if the Last Jedi was taken out,
but
and
you know what
I-
split the Rise of Skywalker.
You know what I can say about all 3 of these movies is, like, if you turn off your critical factors, if you completely shut down your brain and you just stop caring about Star Wars in general, they're entertaining enough movies. Like they're enjoyable enough. I could even watch The Last Jedi and be like, yeah, it was a good enough movie if I stopped caring about the franchise.
I can't say that about that movie.
I could say I would agree with the first and the last, but not the Last
Yeah,
Jedi.
I'm
I just
with you,
can't.
Danny.
Yeah.
I felt like the Last Jedi by itself was just boring.
The
It was
Last
dull.
Jedi is an affront to
some
a Star
people,
Wars fan.
well, okay, so
I know a lot of people that love that movie.
Well, then they're
I
wrong.
do.
I'm sorry, but they're
I agree with you, man. Trust me.
to play devil's advocate, there are some people that I know personally who think that The Empire Strikes Back is boring.
They're stupid.
Yeah, they're dumb.
So saying
How
that-
old are
should
these
stop-
children?
you should
This is
stop
a
knowing
millennial
these
thing.
people.
Hey,
or
speaking
something.
of which, today we need to all recognize today's the 40th anniversary.
It is.
As we are sitting here talking.
about these bullshit
About these
sequel
this is the
trilogies.
40th anniversary of
40th
Empire.
anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. Shout out to
The best
the
movie.
best Star Wars movie ever made.
And-
You can go to our YouTube channel at saltynerdvideo.com and check out our analysis of Empire Strikes Back.
But speaking of the worst Star Wars movie ever made,
Shameless plug.
I'll say this: like as a film enthusiast, as someone who studies film and studies storytelling, The Last Jedi to me is such a fascinating movie. Not only for what it does wrong, but for what it tries to do right. Because as bad of a writer and storyteller as I feel Rian Johnson is, he does make a lot of interesting choices in the movie itself. And if you look at it not as a Star Wars movie, but almost as an Akira Kurosawa sci-fi film, like there are lots of different layers to The Last Jedi where I can appreciate it on a technical level, but as a Star Wars fan, it just breaks my heart to watch it.
No, absolutely. Like The Last Jedi, like you were saying, the fallen hero, the Kurosawa, like this is not a new type of story. If you watch The Last Jedi completely separated from the Star Wars franchise, it's a good movie, right? The fallen
I
hero.
wouldn't call it good, but I'd call it interesting.
Okay, I'm talking about like Luke's theme, like Luke's
Again,
redemption.
not good,
I
not well
think
done.
Luke. I mean, the Counterpoint thing is bullcrap, but
Even
like the
even-
running out of gas thing is classic Battlestar Galactica. Like everybody says that. Oh, that's an episode out of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, but that's not Star Wars.
exactly that's
not.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like separated from the Star Wars franchise, this movie's like okay, yeah, it's cool. It's a cool sci-fi movie.
But
a lot of interesting visuals.
You can see the themes that Rian Johnson tried to go for. You can see the emotion that he tried to layer in there. You could see the character moments that he tried to, bring to the forefront. And, if it had been anything other than a Star Wars movie, I think I would have liked the movie much better. Like if he had his own, chance to tell a story with characters that were completely new, that he wasn't beholden to anything that came before him, I feel like it might have been a more interesting, better movie, but because it was the middle part of this trilogy and because it handled these legacy characters with such disrespect, and because it was also the first Star Wars movie that really kind of put in some woke messaging in it.
Anti-capitalism stuff.
Anti-capitalism, but also anti-male, like feminism, stuff like that. Not that these things are necessarily bad, but I don't feel like they belong in a Star Wars movie. It felt like they were trying to make it too political.
How do you feel about the argument that people make about, because we all know, I think we're all pretty well established that George Lucas leans more left than he does conservative, right?
Sure.
Like with Leia being the strong female character.
He's a hippie, man.
So does Mark
He's a
Hamill.
hippie.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's a hippie.
Mark
so
Hamill's a huge lefty.
Exactly. Mark Hamill also. So like when you see these themes, and it's argued all over social media that Star Wars has always been a political leaned franchise where he's basically fighting space Nazis, and you have a strong female character and you have these other two male characters.
The issue is that once you get into propagandizing big franchises, they become exclusive instead of inclusive, which means that they're excluding a large portion of the fan base that used to love them. And if you want to make mainstream entertainment for the masses, it has to be inclusive. It has to, take these very simple themes like the original trilogy. It was basically a very simple morality tale.
Right.
And it wasn't something that was kind of preaching politics to people. But once you start injecting that stuff in there and making them a piece of propaganda as opposed to a piece of entertainment, you start alienating people, and that's not a good thing to do for the longevity and health of a franchise.
I agree with you 100%. What I'm trying to say is that like the original trilogy, you had moments in those movies that like we don't accept their droids here. We don't want their kind here. Like people say that's an allegory for racism.
That's part of world building though. Like we now know why people had such
that's like 30,
bad look at
30
droids.
Years later though. I can't account that.
Still, but
was George Lucas thinking at that moment that 30 years from now I'm going to have a backstory about droids killing people?
Maybe not, but it's the same thing as just saying my father fought in Clone Wars. It's just a part of this tapestry of this universe that you're establishing. Yeah. That people are racist against droids. It's an interesting kind of aspect to the Star Wars universe.
People were racist then; they're racist now.
Yeah,
they were racist.
I mean,
before
it's okay.
that.
So that's the thing about themes, right?
It's okay to use allegory in order to explore deeper themes, but to specifically put in there the stuff that Rian Johnson did. It's very divisive, and it's something that Kathleen Kennedy has continued to do throughout all the new Star Wars movies, and it always serves to divide the fan base even further. Whereas with the original trilogy, there were politics involved, but the politics were plot points within the story itself, like the whole Galactic Senate thing.
And it was also, in my opinion, it was all politics that was already pretty much universally established. Yeah. Hey, Nazis are bad.
Nazis
but
bad.
Real Nazis are bad,
but
right? Racism is bad.
It wasn't
right?
even
these are universally accepted themes.
It wasn't even Nazism. It was totalitarianism. It was,
I mean, they were dressed in military green with the big hip pants. Like they were Nazis.
Oh yeah,
right?
I mean, even looking at the First Order, it's very, evokes the sanity of.
Think about Hux at that
Nazi
scene
Germany.
where he's Hitler. He's pure Hitler.
Yeah.
Today is the day the First Order will blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because Nazis are universal villains.
Yeah. And I think Steven Spielberg said it when he was making the Indiana Jones movies.
But
like the best villain you can have is a Nazi.
Because politics
cares.
exists in a movie does not mean the movie's political. It's not until you start using movies to push a specific political point of view that it becomes political.
You're talking about the
propaganda.
Anti-capitalism in The Last Jedi?
Yeah. Now, I thought that it was an interesting kind of element that there's this war economy within Star Wars that keeps things going. But the whole classism where, Rose Tico on Canto Bight starts talking about how evil rich people are and how abusive they are. And
well, they were
and how greedy capitalism actually is and stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't just the war profiteers. The whole purpose of Canto Bight, the subplot in The Last Jedi, is to push this message that capitalism's bad and rich people are evil. It was the whole 1% thing personified in the Star Wars universe. And there's nothing inherently wrong with these types of messages, but they just don't belong in Star Wars because they start getting like really preachy and they start vilifying certain people who believe certain things that you don't need to vilify.
Yeah. I'm trying to think through like the original trilogy, although we're fighting space Nazis, there was no classism in any of those three movies. There's not even a hint at that world. Same thing with the prequels. The prequels was
Well,
you had slaves,
yeah, slavery was bad, which is universally accepted.
Yeah.
So
one of the interesting things about, if you look at the original Star Wars and you look at The Hidden Fortress, which was the film that George Lucas based it on, The Hidden Fortress, the princess in that movie has to pretend to be a peasant as she's going through enemy territory. And for the first time in her sheltered life, she actually sees how peasants actually live. Mm-hmm. And she begins to realize just how privileged she's been and how hard it is to live as a peasant in this feudal society that's in the middle of a civil war. And when you have like elements like that, where it's like, okay, now I understand why, classism is bad, and you get the sympathy of, the lower classes and things of that nature, that can be a teaching moment. That can be a lesson. But when you take that and reverse it and say like, oh, rich people are bad, people who are educated and white or whatever are bad. A lot of people out there get insulted by that because they're like, oh, they're talking about me. And all of a sudden, this wonderful franchise, which for 40 years has welcomed everyone with open arms to come and enjoy it and escape into this universe, is suddenly saying, oh, this is not for you anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's not good. It's not a good thing to do.
It's an interesting take.
So, am I the only one that's noticed we just keep coming back to The Last Jedi?
I was going to say
No,
that. Okay,
we
so
do.
let's bring it back real quick. Last question about The Rise of Skywalker and specifically about Rey, because these three movies are about Rey, and I want to
You
talk
mean the
about
identity thief?
I want to talk about her. Real
I
quick.
think the funniest meme I saw was the LifeLock meme. where identity theft can happen to anyone. It's just Rey's picture.
That's great.
I just want to talk about her real quick because she's the main character, and then we'll be done with this podcast. But my question presented to you is: Rey a Mary Sue?
Yes.
100%.
I've written an extensive article about this, which
Danny,
proves it.
You haven't talked in a minute. Kadish just talked fucking for like 2 hours. So go ahead. Is Rey a Mary Sue, or is it just our interpretation because we don't like the way this franchise went?
Well, if the whole download thing is a thing, then
Officially it is.
I guess no, but it would have been nice to have her, see her trained a little bit more.
She trained for a year between The Last Jedi and hold on a second. Between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, she trained for a year with Leia.
No. Well, yeah, but I just mean in like the very first movie. I think there should have been
the first one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
Well, okay,
before
so
she even got to The Last Jedi. I mean, or much less The Rise of Skywalker. Like she's just so. But you guys kind of explain it with the whole the mind rape, the download thing. So if that's what they're saying, whatever, I'll buy it.
Really?
Yeah, sure. I'll
Wow, you gave up really easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's also. I don't. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You got to go.
A while ago now, but it's all good. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the Rise of Skywalker specifically kind of did its best it could have done to address the fact that she spent a year training. She had the Jedi text. She was with Leia. She was and
too little, too late.
Yes, again, too little, too late. But Poe addressed the fact that it's like, hey, I've been in this war for like a year, and you've been here.
Yeah.
So it kind of addresses the fact that like, okay, she was overpowered. I cannot in any way defend the whole lifting rocks thing in The Last Jedi. That was just outrageously ridiculous. But as far as The Rise of Skywalker goes, I feel like she had JJ at least attempted to make Rey do her due diligence to become the Jedi that she became.
I mean, it was retroactive, though. Like
Yeah.
that stuff that should have been set up at either the end of the first movie or in the middle
in
movie.
In middle of the second one, which again, like I'm saying, JJ's Rise of Skywalker, the first half of that movie is episode 8.
I said it before, I'll say it again. I completely agree with that, and it's just a shame that it didn't work out that way. But that's not what they were working with. Or they could have pulled a Harry Potter and made a part 1 and part 2, and just let them just.
Yeah,
That's
do
what
it
I wish
that
they would
way.
have done. Yeah.
A lot
but
of
like
people
this
wish
really should have been 2 movies. It should have been episodes 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels like episodes 7 and 8 are just one movie divided into 2.
Yeah.
because it picks up right where
5
episode
minutes
7
later.
leaves
Yeah,
off.
it's so weird. Like that's the first time. So I noticed a couple changes. So in The Last Jedi picks up pretty much right at the end.
10 minutes later.
Yeah, and that they've never done that before. And then in Rise of Skywalker, it's the first time they go straight to a montage. It goes from the crawl to like Kylo Ren killing people. When in every other movie, it's always like the crawl and
slow
then like
build.
like some kind of spaceship just comes out of warp, or there's like some ships flying by a planet, or it's always like an exterior space shot. Except for this is the first movie that didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that makes it not feel like a Star Wars movie. So
It doesn't fit the mold.
it's like we need a 3-year skip between each film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like there's so many things that are just problematic with this, like the force teleportation, being able to like actually have objects move from place to place through the force.
Yeah, that's weird.
I like last week I would have 100% agreed with you, but because I just recently rewatched it and there's a lot of emphasis on this force dyad situation that they have with Rey and Kylo, where it feels like it's exclusively a power that only they share.
That's literally something they invented for the third movie, though. That was never set up beforehand.
Yep.
You don't think it was at all set up in The Force Awakens?
Nope.
I think it may have been an idea that he was kind of brewing.
It might have been, but it's never established really.
Because in the
Like
Force Awakens,
a lot of this is stuff that you would have to assume if you were watching The Force Awakens without the context of the Rise of Skywalker.
again, you could be right, but from a different
I
point
am
of view, you salty bastard.
He is right, damn it.
From a different point of view, in The Last Jedi,
From the wrong point of view.
they mention that like what Snoke says it like 3 different times, and Luke says it again. Light, powerful dark. The light rises and the darkness to join it. Like they say it over and over again. They're like beating it into our heads that there is something special about the dynamic between Kylo and Rey. And that's what sets them apart from any other Jedi or any other character that we've seen before. And that's what gives them these unique and once of a lifetime powers of these like weird force Skyping and this teleportation stuff. Like that's all unique to these characters because they are this quote unquote force dyad.
Isn't that convenient? So,
Isn't it convenient
yes,
that
very
somebody
convenient.
Well, then
wrote
how do you
that?
explain? I mean, like, I guess no, he doesn't. In The Last Jedi, did they actually make any kind of physical contact, Luke and
Yes.
Kylo Ren? Do they?
Luke and Kylo Ren?
Not Luke. No.
No, they don't. Okay.
Well,
Rey-
Kylo
Rey
Ren
and Kylo.
puts his lightsaber through him.
Rey and Kylo Ren, there's some tangible
So there was,
matter.
but in The Last Jedi, or
Yes.
there was.
So Rey is standing
Okay.
in the rain, and they have their force Skyping. God damn it! They have their force Skyping moment where they're talking to each other, and it's raining where Rey is, and Kylo's on a Star Destroyer. And at the end, when the force Skyping stops, Kylo his hand is wet.
Okay.
Is that when he's shirtless?
So they did.
No, not that moment.
So they did.
his
They did.
massive
They did
chest.
establish it then.
They
So,
did establish
Yeah,
it,
they did
yeah.
establish it.
The whole thing about Palpatine secretly controlling Snoke, though, like none of that really makes a lot of sense to me. Like, why wouldn't Palpatine just be the one to be doing all this stuff? Why does he need a clone that he can control like a puppet?
Because he wasn't fully
or
repowered yet,
if
maybe?
if he's able to clone hugely force powerful clones to go out and do his bidding, why doesn't he just make an army of those things to go out and conquer the galaxy? You know, like there's a lot of little things where, like, if you stop for 2 minutes to actually think about in this movie, they're just awful. They're terrible. They don't make any sense. There's this whole subplot where Lando was trying to find his daughter who was kidnapped by the First Order.
Oh yeah.
And that ends up being Jada, who, you know, he meets at the end of the film, but because that subplot got cut out, it just comes off like him being like a creepy womanizing old man.
That was one of the creepiest moments. He's like, well, let's find out.
Yeah, like Jude was like, if it had just cut before he said that line, it would have been fine. But because he said that line, she's like, it made me feel like I'd just been molested.
He was totally hitting on her
Yeah.
in the context of the scene. But when you take into account the idea that like he's been searching for his daughter for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Like,
But they
it
don't
makes-
tell you
it's-
that in the movie.
No, they don't, because they don't have time, because he's constantly trying to play catch up, because The Last Jedi was just
Well,
like,
it also goes towards Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams making this the most convoluted movie.
yeah.
I mean, we got to talk about the relationship between Rey and Kylo before we end this thing, because there's so much.
Oh, the love
going on there.
relationship?
Well, just even the relationship, like Leia dying, trying to.
We're going to talk about Raylos. Vader, are you ready?
You guys can talk about this.
I mean, how is it that Kylo finally wins a fight with Rey and then she stabs him like with a cheap shot?
Well, because Leia had
Also, the force
her.
healing. How does that break the universe in so many different ways?
The books, man.
half, man.
It's all about the books.
like why didn't Obi-Wan heal Qui-Gon as he was dying?
It's all about the books, man.
Like, I'm just going to go on record and say this right now. If it's not on his TV screen or on a movie screen,
It's not canon.
in my
That's
head.
the MacGuffin.
It's never going to be.
Like movies have to stand on their own.
That's
like
right.
If you can't communicate what you need to communicate within a movie, then you're doing it wrong.
Comic books and books need to. God, I can't even think of the word.
They need to expand on what the story is.
They need to
instead of
expand the story,
explaining
not
plot
explain
holes.
it. Yeah.
I agree with you. The only thing I can say against that is that the ancient Jedi texts
The ancient Jedi texts.
that Luke had on that tree that Rey took with her, that is the biggest plot convenience for all of these questions that you guys have. How did she learn about force healing? Well, they were in the ancient Jedi texts. Like, she must have learned it from there.
Ancient Jedi text.
And why didn't all the other Jedi from the past have these abilities?
It's not about where she learned it from. It's about the fact that it exists to begin with. Because as a storyteller, when you put that in there, this is another thing that creates retroactive plot holes. Like, how did no other Jedi ever have this power before? Why didn't they use it?
The only thing that you can say about that is that
If they were in the ancient Jedi text, then you have to assume that all the Jedi that came before her knew it.
not necessarily, because this was the first Jedi temple and Luke was in search of it. And this
You tell me that Jedi Masters had never migrated there and read those things?
It's an unfindable place. Nobody knew where it was until Luke found it.
Did Luke even read them?
He read them.
Apparently, he even wrote one of them.
Did he?
Well,
I kind of got the
journal
impression
was among those books.
I got the impression from Yoda that Luke didn't read them. Am I wrong?
Page turners, they are not.
No, he read them.
So Yoda had read them. Oh, fuck. God damn it, Kadish is right.
Get used to it. It happens a lot.
God damn it. All right, screw these movies.
So Kylo and Rey's relationship. So at the end, where Rey kills Palpatine, which is what Palpatine wanted to begin with, by the way. So technically, Palpatine wins. So Rey dies.
Palpatine's win this for franchise.
Rey dies, and then Kylo, who's never shown that he knows how to force heal before, uses the force to heal Rey. But if you watch that scene, he places his hand over her womb and uses the force to heal her as he transfers his force energy into her. Now, if you look at how Shmi Skywalker became impregnated with Anakin through the Immaculate Inception, chances are Kylo Ren impregnated Rey and brought her back to life and then died. So technically, the Skywalker line still exists.
I hate you.
Because she's going to have a baby.
Shut the fuck up.
This is my theory. I think I just broke Alex.
Jesus Christ.
The Reylos were right.
I hate you so much.
Yeah.
I hate you
And that's why she kissed him.
Just shut up.
Because she wanted to thank him for impregnating her.
Thank you for
Well, that makes more sense than the movie I watched because they have like no chemistry. I don't see them falling in love at all. You know.
There was a tweet.
Can we just stop now? Read the commercial.
There was a tweet where somebody was like, I don't know about you guys, but I think Rey looks pregnant in this scene.
They're right. They're correct.
Right. They were fucking
God
right.
damn it.
The Reylos know best.
The Reylos
How
win.
dare you? I'm done. I have to quit now.
The Reylos won, sir.
I have to go start my own podcast. Buy all this shit and put it in my house.
You can have the shit that I used to use.
I don't want your shit. This stuff's way better. That's why we have this stuff now.
Okay.
But how about that scene between Rey and Ghost Luke, where basically Luke just gives the middle finger to Rian Johnson and
was
everything
great.
that he
A
set up.
Jedi's weapon deserves more respect
respect.
than this. Yeah, that was a total.
Yeah, and the
Rian
whole
Johnson.
thing where she's like, "I'm doing what you did," and he's like, "I was wrong."
Everything. Yeah, I was wrong. Everything that we wanted Luke to do in The Last Jedi.
You better raise that TIE fighter or that X-Wing fighter out of the water, man.
Right.
That's what
You better do it right now.
And where did Kylo Ren get that TIE fighter to go to Exegol with?
Oh boy.
Also, the interesting thing is like, so the ships didn't know how to go up in Exegol because of the magnetic interference from the storms.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
But after Palpatine died, the atmosphere of Exegol completely changed. The storms went away. So it's like, could Palpatine have just stopped being evil long enough for the storms to clear up so his planet-killing fleet could leave?
Do all those people live underground?
No, I don't think they were underground.
Oh, that's the other thing too. Is like
Where were all these Sith people at?
the explanation, the official explanation for where he got these thousands upon thousands of people
followers
was because they were all born and raised on this planet by loyalists. That was the explanation. He basically created an entire planet of people who were in servitude. You haven't talked in a while, Danny. You want to say anything about this? Kadish broke me with the Raylo thing. I'm done.
I just, the more I think about it, sadly, the less I like these movies.
See, the minute you start thinking critically about these films, they just fall apart.
But I will take it back to my movie theater experience. I enjoyed the experience
Long enough.
Yeah. To all the people out there who love these movies, I don't want to take anything away from them.
Oh, I do.
But if these movies had been made right, they would probably love them even more.
Yeah,
You know,
that's fair.
and I don't think it's wrong to criticize bad art because you just get more bad art if you let it slide.
Oh, don't you know that nothing about art is objective, sir?
The Rise of Skywalker.
Listen, if you guys are listening to this podcast on YouTube and you are just like fever hatred towards Matthew Kadish for destroying your favorite movie, comment on this YouTube channel your paragraph about why this movie is good, and
I'll show you why you're wrong.
We'll be glad to talk to you about it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed watching The Rise of Skywalker. Like, it's a fun enough movie if you don't think about it too much. But when you start analyzing it from, any logical point of view, it doesn't hold up.
No.
Like the whole Holdo maneuver thing, like, we wondered how JJ was going to fix that. And, he basically just said, we can't do it because it's a 1 in a million shot. And it's like, how lazy do you have to be to use that as your excuse?
Honestly, my opinion on that is he had bigger fish to fry.
The best part about that was that he put Dominic Monaghan in there
Yeah.
to say it.
The Hobbit.
Yeah.
What was his name? Mary? All right.
But I mean, there's just so much about this movie.
There's more.
Between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, you could literally talk about this like the problems with these two movies for weeks.
Oh, it's not the last time we'll ever talk about these.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
God, I hope it is.
At least
Until next May.
Until next May.
I'm just going to put these on repeat.
Yeah.
We'll play.
Oh no, we're going to overrule you.
We'll have more stuff to talk about by then.
Yikes. All right. So that's it for our.
Well, do we want to go around and rate the sequel trilogy from best to worst?
Why? Because I spent 3 hours shitting all over them.
We're gonna rate them.
Yeah, we're gonna rate them from best to worst.
1, 3, 2, or 7, 9, 8.
7, 9, 8.
Yeah. Okay.
798.
7, 9, 8.
7, 9, 8.
There's no other rating.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
there's not.
That is all that
The
can
only
be.
way to win is not to play.
And Ryan Johnson can lick my butthole,
You could toss your salad.
toss my salad.
Don't be a man baby.
Don't even get me started on the social media reaction to this movie. All right, guys, thanks for listening. If you hated these movies, I'm sure you enjoyed this podcast. If you love these movies, you probably hated this podcast. But either way, go to saltynerdvideo.com and check out all of our... Go to saltynerdvideo.com and like and subscribe, or dislike and subscribe, whatever. I don't care. Just go to saltynerdvideo.com and check out our YouTube channel. We have all these videos and all these podcasts split up into digestible segments, all for your convenience.
And if you want to subscribe to the podcast,
You can go to saltynerdpodcast.com. It'll take you to your respective Android and or Apple product to subscribe to the podcast, and you can listen to us there. Like, subscribe, give us a rating, talk shit in the comments. I don't really care. Just interact with us because we want to hear from you.
Hey, Salty.
Yes?
My skin's kind of dry.
You can go to organic. My wife might not. Yeah, I don't know if
That's
I
my
want to.
line.
So what about one of those amazing shirts that eventually you're going to make that everyone can buy that's going to just make you all the money in the world? What is it again, Mr. Kadish?
What was it?
Oh, God.
I chalk it up to bad
Chalk it
writing.
up
we
to
go.
bad writing.
You can
That's
go to
gotta be a shirt.
saltynerdstore.com
There
and go
we
to
go.
our Teespring account, and that'll take us there. We got a bunch of different
Get some
t-shirts
stuff.
there. I'm gonna revamp that because Vader's been nagging me to update the shopping
Yeah, you haven't
list.
done shit for
I
like
have not.
months.
I
There's
haven't.
nothing on there.
You
You
can
have
go
a
there.
day job, damn it.
I do. I did. I don't anymore.
Thank you, COVID.
Yeah, thanks.
I really don't want Ryan Johnson anywhere near my butthole. Okay. So, I don't know why I said that earlier.
He's going to subvert your expectations.
You know what I don't understand? So a lot of people, boycotted the Solo movie because of The Last Jedi, but a lot of people did not. You didn't hear about people boycotting Knives Out because of Ryan Johnson. I just
well,
yes,
that's-
you
yes,
did.
you did.
Did you?
yeah,
Were
for
there?
sure.
Oh,
that
my
was a thing?
God. That's all I heard about for like 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There were a lot of people who boycotted.
I know
Knives
people
Out.
They
who
did. Okay.
don't allow that to be played on their home television set.
Shout out to Roe over there in
Yeah,
Chicago. Yeah, he's like, that movie's not allowed to be played.
And his wife did it anyway.
I mean, I haven't
Poor
seen
guy.
it just because I don't want
It was
Ryan
okay.
Johnson. Yeah, like I don't want to support that man.
Is it
in
the
any way,
movie
shape, or form.
that killed it, or is it the social media? His specifically Ryan Johnson's social media reaction to the backlash.
No, for
What is
me,
it?
for
Yeah.
me, for me, no. Just
It was just the movie?
Just what he did to Luke Skywalker. Yeah. What he, not even so much the movie. What he did to the character of Luke Skywalker is unforgivable, in my opinion. As someone who, like, I spent my entire life up until that moment thinking I knew who this character was.
And this guy just
And he just took a big fat shit all over it. So, like, no, screw that guy. I'm not watching.
he spent a time at the was it Disney? It was either the Disney convention or San Diego Comic-Con, but he was in there amongst the fans, like passing out pizzas all night, like people like hanging out with people who were waiting in line. Like there's stories about Ryan Johnson being like super awesome to fans.
Sure, he's a cool guy. I'm sure, like he probably is a really cool guy. I'm just saying that, like, I get to choose who I support with my money, and he's someone that has wronged me in such a way that I will never support him with my money. That's all.
Okay.
So I'll pirate his shit if you want me to watch it. Sure, I'll download it illegally. There you go.
Ryan Johnson is a guy who's got a little bit of talent and a whole lot of ego. And his entire career, he's been coddled by the critics. He's been told that he's brilliant, that he can do no wrong, that his poop don't stink. And the fact of the matter is that he's nowhere near as talented a filmmaker as he thinks he is. And he also doesn't respect the fans of established franchises. Now, when he's left to his own devices and he's doing his own thing, he's fine. I thought Knives Out was a perfectly, enjoyable little cozy mystery type thing. A little bit predictable, but it wasn't a bad movie by any means. I didn't think Looper was a bad movie. I didn't think Brothers Bloom was a bad movie. I didn't think Brick was all it was made out to be, but it certainly wasn't a bad film. The Last Jedi, however, was shockingly bad. Like you could teach a screenwriting course of how not to write a screenplay based off of The Last Jedi alone, and I'm absolutely flabbergasted that not only did he write such a bad script, but that he continues to defend it. And if you just look at the interviews that he did around the time that was coming out, especially when he was paired up with Mark Hamill.
Oh, God, yeah.
And Mark tells the story about how he disagreed with Ryan's vision for this. And then he talks about how Ryan's response was like, we're not making a movie for these people. We're making the movie for us. We wanted to do the story we want to tell. And what Ryan Johnson meant by that was him.
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson, not us, not Mark Hamill and Ryan Johnson.
Which is
Kathleen
a
Kennedy.
stark difference to people
But
who have been working on The Mandalorian.
The greatest filmmakers always keep their audience in mind. Like I recently watched a interview with Hitchcock where he was interviewed by the press, and it was about like one of the movies that he'd made kind of towards the end of his career. But he was constantly talking about how he wanted his audience to think and feel when they were watching a movie. And that was the brilliance of Hitchcock, was that he was the ultimate psychiatrist. He understood the psychology behind how audiences, interact with stories. And so he was able to scare people and make people laugh and, thrill people because he understood the psychology of the audience. And it seems to me like so few filmmakers nowadays understand that. It seems to me like they're either so self-absorbed that they're only making movies for themselves, or they don't understand the audience at all. And so they're trying to force an audience to accept something that the audience isn't going to accept. And it's a failure on the part of Hollywood that there's no apprenticeship programs. There's no real kind of gauntlet that people have to go through to pay their dues in order to be considered a good storyteller anymore. It's all about who you know. It's all about how much money you can bring to the table. It's all about what kind of politics you have. And these people keep making crappy movies and keep destroying successful, beloved franchises, all because they haven't done the work to actually bother to learn how to tell a good story. And it's sad.
It is sad. It's all about the money. The root of all evil.
Yeah, like J.J. Abrams should be the next Spielberg, but he's not. He's the biggest hack in Hollywood. And I'm not afraid to say it. And it saddens me because I used to be a fan of his. But he's proven time and time again he doesn't understand story. He can't even end a movie. He doesn't know how to do an ending.
There needs to be a new Lucas come up, a new Spielberg, somebody new that can give us a new world to play in that we love and enjoy.
I think
something for the new generation of people.
I think Denis Villeneuve is the closest thing we have to a new Spielberg right now. Possibly Colin Trevorrow if he hadn't made so many bad dinosaur movies.
At least he respects the fans.
At least he respects the fans.
I tell you what, like, I can't wait to see Dune because Blade Runner 2049 was like one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen.
I really liked it.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
I agree.
And Arrival. Have you ever seen Arrival?
Yeah.
Such a powerful movie.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to end our Star Wars month. That's right. That's the end of it. We are no longer talking about Star Wars. May is done.
Just real quick, can I ask you guys?
God damn it, Kadish. I'm trying to do an outro.
I know.
3 hours and 20 minutes.
This kind of goes hand in hand with the Disney trilogy. What do you guys think Taika Waititi is going to do with his Star Wars movie?
I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. I think he'll
insert some humor.
Oh, for sure.
But I think he'll be respectful to the property.
It really seems like the future of Star Wars is going to be on TV instead of the movies, which I think is a little bit,
it's sad. However, I think it might need to live there for a little while before it comes back.
How funny.
And you know what? If it takes this whole TV generation with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and Taika Waititi, if it takes this little short period of time, a couple of years, whatever it takes, for them to rebuild Star Wars fandom and the love of Star Wars on Disney Plus and on TV and on serialized episodes before they bring it back to the big screen in like a big grand epic tentpole movie, that's fine. As long as those 3 guys or 4 people are in charge of Star Wars, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, the 2 main people who I think respect the fandom, respect the franchise, love George Lucas, those guys are going to bring this franchise back.
Unfortunately, you still have Kathleen Kennedy in the mix.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the TV per se. You got to remember Star Trek got its its heyday was television,
And you can tell better stories on TV.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. You've got more time.
As long as they have Force users in Star Wars, I'll be okay with the right storytellers.
Yeah.
I don't like this idea of Star Wars stories without Jedi or Sith or something that's tapping into that.
It's what separates it from every other sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. No more talking from Kadish. That's it. Thank you for joining us. This was our month of May. May the 4th be with you. We decided to dedicate the entire month to Star Wars, and so we did. We talked about every single trilogy, whether we loved it
killed us
or hate it, whether it killed us or whether we've just found delight in watching these, especially Empire Strikes Back. Thank you for joining us for these couple of weeks where we talked about Star Wars. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you come back for more. June is going to have a whole nother slew of exciting, fun podcasts. Slew. We're going to have a ton of fun, guys, coming up in June. Please subscribe. You can subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, anywhere that you consume your content.
Yes. Or just go to saltynerdpodcast.com.
Or just go to saltynerdpodcast.com.
They'll take you to...
What did I say?
you were telling everyone to go to all these different places. You just need to go to one place.
Just one
to
place.
Subscribe
Saltynerd.com.
Saltynerd.com.
Saltynerdpodcast.com.
That's 2 places.
So is it saltynerd.com or saltynerdpodcast.com?
Saltynerd.com is our website where you can get all of our content, and saltynerdpodcast.com is where you can go if you want to subscribe to the podcast.
Thank you.
And then Salty Nerd Video is where you go. saltynerdvideo.com is where you go to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get all of our YouTube content.
When does Salty get to talk?
Never.
God, you've been talking for 3 hours.
All right, guys, where can they find you on the socials? Matthew Kadish, go ahead.
They can find me on Twitter at Matthew Kadish, Kadish, and they can also find me at kadishbooks.com if they want to check out my books.
Direct your hate mail there. Danny, where can they find you?
They can find me at Dork-Knight. That's Dork Knight with 2 Ks. At Dork-Knight LV on all the social media channels.
Vader.
You can find me at Matt Vader74 on the socials and Twitch
There you
as
go.
well.
And Truey Louie.
Truly Louie on Instagram.
Truly _ Louis.
Truey underscore.
You guys
If you
can-
like cute Persian kittens. So,
And that's not a metaphor, guys.
no, it's the truth.
Everybody loves pussy. You can find
true.
me at salty_nerd on Twitter. I tweet all the freaking time because I'm addicted to my phone. You can also go to salty_nerd_podcast at Instagram and or TikTok. You can go to salty_nerd there. I'm on TikTok too. I do weird, crazy, stupid
Get a couple
videos.
glasses and whiskey, and Alex, you can't talk anymore.
No, really. I'm so screwed up, dude. My lips don't move anymore.
Well, I think we all needed to drink in order to talk about these movies.
That being
I'm
said,
coming down now.
They're
Thank
crashing.
you guys for listening to the podcast.
Sobering up.
We can't wait to talk about dinosaurs next month.
Oh, yeah,
Peace out,
dinosaurs.
everybody. Jurassic June. # hit me up on Twitter.
Coming at you.